If I decide to myself or throw up in about 3 minutes, you'll know why.
Press record, okay? Yeah.
Oh, I had pressed it, yeah. So
See that.
when JB hops on the screen, it's going to get real. You better push the red button. So,
Oh, man. Nice jumper, Ivan.
With a polo.
Oh, God. You're classy. We don't rate that kind of dress code in this room, but that's fine. That's great.
Yeah, I was about to say it's a typical English thing to come home and get changed at 1 a.m. into a jumper and a polo shirt.
What you don't see is there's pajamas from the waist down.
I hope.
No, there's nothing from the waist down.
I was going to show you then, but
Yeah, okay.
just joggers.
Yeah.
He's Porky Pigging it.
I love that expression.
lounge trousers.
Lounge trousers.
Welcome to the Plastic Posse Podcast. We're glad to have you along for episode 38 as we discuss the hobby we all love, scale modeling. My name is Scott Gentry, and I am joined by a group of friends who are some of the best modelers out there. From Denver, we've got John Bonani. Joining us from DC, we've got TJ Holler. From right here in Utah, where I am, Doug Smith. And last but certainly not least, his lordship, Ivan Jensen Taylor from the UK.
Huzzah.
We're also joined tonight by a very special guest. We've got Stan Spooner from the Model Box. Welcome to the Posse, Stan.
Thanks, guys. This is going to be fun.
Welcome, welcome.
Banter. We need some banter.
Banter?
TJ, you got any banter?
Well, he smashed a kit while we've been talking, so I mean, I think was it the raccoon you're working on right now, or raccoon?
Yeah.
How do you say it?
Raccoon. That's the way I say it.
Okay. Well, there's controversy with Kuster and however else they say it too.
Well, that's because the SCR is all in German, but the mercenary stuff's all in English.
Ah, nice. How's the raccoon going? I know you shared some photos with the decals with us. I like the fishbone.
Thank you. Yeah, it's ready for weathering. It's already been matte coated and decals are down. It did not take me multiple hours and or days to finish decals because it shouldn't.
So real quick, I want to jump in on this. Let's talk about this specific topic in 5 seconds. You did decals from a bare finish to clear coating in how many hours?
In total paint or just
total process? Like when you started decaling to clear coating it. What was that time frame?
Well, last night I put on a pretty thin coat of X22. It was the last thing I did before I went to bed. And then today when I got home, I think I got down here around 3:30, and by 5:30 I was done decaling. Hadn't matte coated yet. That's only because it was dinner time.
You said 18 decals, TJ?
18 decals, yeah.
Is this on a Mac kit?
Yeah.
I only ask because, there's, like you said, TJ, some people say you have to wait days for decals to dry, and I'm impressed that you ripped through that pig, or should I say raccoon, in an afternoon.
I used
Microsoft? Or what?
Yeah, Mark Fit Strong, the
Tamiya
Tamiya stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I used this.
That'll bend aluminum.
Yeah, for setting it. This is what goes down first. This goes down, decal on, this a little bit on there, let it sit for a minute, like literally a minute. Press it down with a damp Q-tip and get everything out. I'll look to see if everything's down, put another coat over it, let it sit there for a minute. And if there's any wrinkles, which all my machining career kits are textured, so the surface is not smooth like at all. It's very rough. I'll just press down and work at it. When it looks relatively dry, I'll touch it because you're not going to mess it up. They're pretty wave decals are thick as hell, so it's hard to mess them up.
Very similar to Hasegawa and Tamiya.
Yes.
Tamiya, yeah. You might as well be putting armor plate on.
Yeah. Then I throw a little bit of microsole on it and make sure everything's down, and then that's it.
Do you clear coat over the top of it once you're done?
Just to mat it down. I don't. So what I also do is I use a very soft fiberglass pin,
Mm-hmm.
like one of those adjustable ones. When everything's dry, I just take that. I do like this over it. Just burnish it down. It fades them a little bit, which is good because it fits with the aesthetic, and it really helps eliminate the carrier film like on the sides. And then I hit it with a little bit of matte coat and move on.
Interesting. Okay.
Just talking about decaling.
I don't have time to spend 3 days decaling.
Oh, no.
So you guys can probably get the Tamiya Mark Fit stuff quite easy. It's quite hard to get over here. How does it compare to, say, Solvaset or the Deco Strong?
I've never used Solvaset. So I can't answer.
Solvaset's like acid, so I mean,
yeah.
Solvaset is like the step that you use right before you go to Tamiya Extra Thin.
I just go to Tamiya Extra Thin.
Yeah.
yeah,
It works awesome.
Yeah, I like Mark Fit Strong as well. It works really well.
It is strong though. Like it will mess up some paint.
I was curious to hear that you used Sol on top of Mark Strong, because I've done it where I've used just Mark Strong. Now I have Sol and Set, Microsol and Set, but I've recently converted to only using Mark Fit Strong before decaling, kind of during it, and then maybe one more after it or two to get it to conform. But it's real good stuff. Spoiler alert, I got it for free at the Nationals. To be fair, to me, it was giving them out to everyone.
Oh, seriously? You got it free? What?
You? Free?
Wow.
That's the weirdest thing.
We've got this running gag. It's TJ's finished a kit while we talked, and probably somebody came to the door with a free kit for John while we talked. So, I mean...
And some muffins.
Hey, you know what? Got to go with the system if it works, man.
That's right.
No, we only say it out of jealousy.
Yeah.
Stan, before we jump in too far, and I know we've gone pretty deep already, I'd love to hear about your recent build. It's FA Miniatures, correct?
Oh, the one that we just posted up there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little quarter scale kit that FA Miniatures was really nice and sent me. It's one of those things where you basically have 6 parts when you get it. Have you used any of their kits or seen any of their kits firsthand yet?
I have not seen them firsthand, but I sent it to the group probably 2 months ago. Their 48 scale Whippet, and then the large like land battleship one, and they look gorgeous. And then when you posted yours, I was like, oh gosh, I better pull the trigger on these.
Yeah, he does a great job at retaining the detail story and reducing it to, the easiest amount of parts. I mean, if you're looking for a traditional model build, that's not it, because there's like I said, 5 or 6 parts to the whole thing. That said, cleanup is a whole different issue there. It is with the growth trees on it and the sort of rigidity of connection points. You've got to be patient because it's brittle.
Yeah.
Once you clear all that out, get that sucker together. It's the fit was pretty positive. I was surprised that he set it up so that there was some good positive negative interaction when you put the running gear on and so on. I will warn you, because everything gets grown up through the bottom.
Right.
And so there is no bottom to the tank. You've got to cut all of that away, cut past the lower edge, blank that off, and create some sort of bottom plate. Not a big deal. And then I chose to turn mine into a radio tank. But, get a little bit of information out there, and I'm dangerous. So,
it looks really good. I was impressed. You wouldn't be able to tell it was a 3D printed model. I didn't see any layer lines, and your finishes, pardon the term, just kick ass. So I think you did a bang up job on it, and certainly great for their brand.
Thanks. There's a few ridge marks on it. You can knock those down pretty much with a little bit of light sanding and some primer. But beyond that, again, the only thing you need to worry about is the rigidity of those connections and like the fenders, micro thin. I don't know how this guy does it, but man, and they're fragile. Yeah. I think I broke the rear fenders off combined between the two of them 5 times.
Ooh.
I mean, I've got sausages for fingers. What do you want, guys? But at the end of the day, it was fun. It was something different. And just before that, I finished the Sheridan. So that was a long labor of love.
I think you put enough bags on it for the whole 11th Cavalry to, store their luggage. So
have you done any photo research on Sheridans in the Gulf War? They look like gypsy wagons, man. They were loaded so heavily.
I would assume because they probably didn't want them in frontline service against T-72s, so they're like, put it on the thing that's safe, maybe? I don't know.
Well, these were the first things dropped in to sort of create a hedge. This is Desert Shield, not Desert Storm, although in the blink of a day, you're now in combat. But this is period correct for Desert Shield. Pear, the owner and publisher of Abrams Squad, whom that's going into a publication for, it gave me a bunch of amazing color photographs that he got from a book in Japan. I have no idea where he got this thing, but great reference. Every stain, every scratch that I could find has photo reference for it. It was a lot of fun to try to replicate that, a long process. And the RFM kit is not the quickest build. Let's just put it that way. Have you guys built RFM before?
Yeah. We have a group build for the T-34-85. Not a perfect kit, but I think a really good kit.
Yeah.
We had some things that we had to challenges that we had to sort of get around. And there was a little bit of variability from kit to kit. Mine had some lower hole issues that John and TJ and Doug, I don't think really face. So there's a little bit of variation, but yeah, it's pretty good overall.
Okay. Well,
Scott doesn't understand that I don't know armor. So when there was an issue, I just put it together and said, it looks good to me.
As long as you remember the great adage in armor building, if something's wrong, put a tarp on it. You're solid, dude. Yeah. So, no, I think one of the biggest obstacles on those kits are instructions. And in that particular kit, it gave you instructions theoretically to build two different variants, the early and the late. And it was all bass backwards. It took a lot of sorting out, and I still got it wrong.
See, I'm ready for that. I've got 2 decades of building dragon kits under my belt. They couldn't make a good set of instructions if they tried. So, well, hey, John, I know you've changed gears over the last day or two, but let's talk about that 1/16 scale Stug.
Yeah. So it's coming along good. It's going a little slower than I thought just because it's so big, but I was able to get some OPR work done, which is basically some staining and shadowing. And then what I'm going to do next is something that's widely popularized by Night Shift because he's awesome. Put the coin in the bucket for that shout out already. But it's adding those little rust tones on the chip paint and then blending them out. It adds just this subtle texture and subtle tonality effect to the entire vehicle. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm hoping I can get that done tomorrow. It's going to be a long process because it's just such a big palette, but otherwise, hands down, one of the most fun kits I've had in a while building. I would highly recommend it. And then also on top of that, I got some stowage from Value Gear. So huge shout out to Steve. Picked up some Stug gear from him and he sent a huge care package that I'm going to disseminate to a lot of our friends and people online right now. So otherwise, everything's going good.
Steve's the man. That whole stowage set on that Sheridan was custom designed for that build by Steve. And then he turned around and marketed it for that period because he didn't have anything in that period.
That's awesome.
Dude is a solid dude and just incredibly talented and so fun to hang out with.
Yeah, that's for sure. We hung out with him at Nats in Vegas and looking forward to hanging with him again at Omaha. Just a great guy. Great guy. Well, Ivan, before you fall asleep over there, tell us about your Merkava and your M3 Lee.
Yes, I'll start with the Lee, since that's what I've decided to start cracking on with again. Got all that base painted and faded, and recently, just the other night, I did a pin wash. I did the one where put a bit of Abteilung oil paint onto a bit of cardboard and let all the linseed oil drain out of it. It should be a couple of hours. I left it 4 days, and then just mixing a bit of odorless thinner, doing a pin wash, and I found doing it that way, it's much more controlled. It's very... It doesn't go anywhere you don't want it. It capillaries, and this is on a VMS satin surface, which is actually very flat. There's no real sheen to it, but it capillaries around all the bolts and panel lines. It's beautiful. So there's hardly any cleanup, and because it's oil, like Night Shift said, ding, there's the other coin. Because you can blend it much easier rather than all or nothing with enamels. It just blends beautifully. So, and that's that done. It's unfortunately killed a lot of the contrast I tried to gain in the paint stage, but I can gain that back again with oil paint rendering and doing stuff like that. I also broke the barrel off again. Unfortunately, my modus operandi for modeling is to damage everything I build. So I've had to make using epoxy putty, I've drilled a hole in the turret, epoxy putty a little slot, so now the barrel can just sit in there neatly rather than just having a flat butt-to-butt joint, which it was prior. So I'm not worried about that anymore. That's fixed. I've also painted the star, hand-painted that on the turret and made it look like there's white paint dripping down. I didn't want it looking too perfect. And on the side of the hull, I couldn't think of a serial number. And I was like, well, screw it, I'll do the dates of what day the Nationals start in the US. Unfortunately, I did it in UK date, so it might look a bit odd for you, but I've done it in the proper way.
Wait, proper way. You drive on the wrong side of the road. Come on.
So 2007-22 makes sense, small, bigger, biggest. I'll leave it at that. Moving along to the Merkava, or Merkava. Yes, this is a build for Marcus at TMMI. I got it built in 2 days, which is crazy quick for me, and it's quite a complex TACM kit. There's mold lines on everything. It's one of the earlier ones, so there's a lot of cleanup, and it's a bit clunky. That's how I can describe it. It's a bit clunky. But it's a nice kit. The Mercury is massive. It is a beast of a tank. Comparing it to other things, it's a unit, and it's cool because it's got the chains on it.
The overall shape is beautiful. They did a great job on the profile.
You're building that for Marcus? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, I am. He wants his words, a big build. I don't know what that means really. So I don't know if that's a full
language. That's Marcus stuff.
Yeah, Marcus style. So I want a big build. So it's like just the tank, or do you want a full scene with like 100 figures in it? I don't know. But that's all built, ready for paint. I've also got 2 Edward Zeros to build for him. So they're aircraft, and I'm just not in the mood for aircraft at the minute.
He's keeping you busy. Wow.
He is. I also did yesterday 3 new kit release reviews for him, where I had to take a picture of the sprues and write 250 words. 3 of those were submitted yesterday. So you might see them in February or March's issue of TMMI if you read it.
Now, is your Merkava going in TMMI or in MIM?
I think that one's going to be a TMMI one.
Okay.
Yeah, because the ICM Model T Ford, that was in MIM. So I think it's just going to vary between, depends how big the build is, I think.
Right.
But I've been surprisingly busy. The reason I'm so busy is because I'm back on my diet, and because I'm really hungry, I need to distract myself. So modeling's a good way of doing that.
He's saving up calories for corn dogs, baby.
That's right.
Well, today was weigh day, and I lost 4.5 pounds. I'll take that as a win. So
absolutely.
Nice. Good job, man. Good job.
How many stone is that? I'm kidding. I don't even know what that means. I just hear people, I lost 5 stone. What?
What does it mean when Ivan has stones? I don't know.
Pounds and stones make sense.
As long as they're not kidney stones. So.
Right. Yeah.
Doug, what's going on over there at the modeling casa?
Well, I tried real hard to get going on that mini art M3 Grant, and I put the base, the bottom plate together, and then there's 2 parts. The front of the hole starts there, and there is nothing on that kit that makes me understand exactly what angle it needs to sit at. And the other part that goes on it, I don't, the instructions are vague. The way it aligns is vague to me. And so I just kind of pushed it to the side because I don't want to screw that one up. And we were talking last week, a bunch of us got on and we're just kind of chatting as we built. And I looked over and there's my Bandai speeder bike that I'd started, even painted the hole on. And I pulled that over and I just started weathering and chipping up the engine parts and stuff. And by the time we were done that night, I had most of the hull assembled. The whole thing's together. I just need to do a little detail work and then decide how I want to do the figure for it.
I really like the chipping you're doing on the hull of that speeder.
Yeah, that one was fun.
I wouldn't be too concerned about mini arts instructions. They are like that. They are very vague. They're just very busy.
Well, if it was something that I could look at on the exterior and understand kind of how it sits, but that one part, that third part that goes in there, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't even know what it is. So I'm going to have to do some digging before I go any farther with it.
If you can, send me a picture of that part of the instructions in the part, and I'll see if I can add anything that might help that.
All right. That'd be great.
Just wait until you get to the tracks. They're an understatement. They lack pedigree. That's my new phrase for things that aren't great.
Master Club.
Well, the other thing we can do, Doug, is if you haven't found a solution by then, we can take it with us over to Denver to JB's house. But anyway, JB, tell us about a couple of shows we'll be attending here in the near future.
Yeah, so February 19th and 20th, Scott and I are going to meet Jim Bates and a few other people up at the Northwest Scale Modelers Show, which is being held at the Museum of Flight in Seattle. So if you're listening, if you're in the area, please stop by. It's both days. I think I'm going to give a seminar, and then Scott and I and Jim Bates are going to talk about social media and podcasting and YouTubing. So please stop by, say hi. We'll definitely make a trip out to Skyway Model Shop, and then we'll also probably hit up some of the local museums too. So super stoked about that. We fly in Friday morning, and Jim Bates, our chauffeur, is going to take care of us, and then a couple more people. So John Everett, and then also our good buddy Steve Baker from Denver as well. So the posse's coming in hot, and that should be a lot of fun. Again, that's on the 19th and 20th of February. And then probably more importantly than that is the posse gathering in Denver. So during the weekend of March 11th, the IPMS Commies, which is a club here in Denver, is hosting their annual show on March 12th. And TJ, Doug, Scott, Jim Bates, and other people are coming into town, and we're just going to have a blast. So look for a lot of content from, the 11th to the 13th of March. It's going to be really fun. The show's out at the fairgrounds. It's about 20 minutes away from my house. I think it's going to be like Real World, but for modelers. So I feel like I'm going to have a hotel at my place. There's going to be people sleeping on the floor because I ran out of bedrooms. Somebody's probably going to sleep in the shop as long as they don't touch anything, and it's going to be a great time. So really looking forward to that. And it's just, I'm really happy that everybody's coming out, and it's something maybe we make a tradition and rotate. So maybe we come out to Utah at some point, or DC to visit TJ and see the Beltway there and the museums that they have. So I think this is just an awesome experience we're going to have.
You have a crew going out from San Antonio for that one too.
Oh, that's right. Rob is coming, and then I think his team, a couple of his folks too. So I might have to get 2 or 3 briskets and pork shoulders to smoke. So copious amounts of meat. You'll have the meat sweats when you leave my place.
Yes, John, you are the master, but that smoker is starting to look like you need to make a trip to Home Depot for a much bigger one.
I know, if we keep this up. So it'll be really good. Super excited. And of course we'll have funfetti, and then we'll have a piece for Ivan in celebration, and we'll give him a live shout out for sure.
I'll just be at home crying.
I will be at the Old Dominion Open in
nice.
Richmond with the Model Geeks. All 4 of them will be there. I am meeting them there. It is down in Richmond. It's about 2.5 hours away from me. That is on February 26th, and it's at Richmond International Raceway, which I think has a different name now. I know it is RIR, but that's where it is. I've never been. It's supposed to be a really good show.
Yeah.
They talk about it. They talk very highly about it, so I'm excited to go. I'll be bringing a handful of model kits. I'm not going to be doing anything other than entering my models and looking at all the other sweet models and hopefully meeting people and making new friends.
Ivan, we need to get him a gimbal.
Get him a gimbal.
I was also going to say you need to steal Darren's KV2 because he ain't building it.
Yeah, that's true. I'm going to tell him to bring it, and I'll just take it. Well, I'm going to try to get over to his house before the show. I'll just take it while I'm there.
Nice. And then you're doing, I know it's a little further out, but you're planning to do the AMPS Nationals as well, correct? In Newport News?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to make that because I've got this. I have the ODO in February. I have Commies Fest in March. I'm going to try. I really want to because it's not that far away. It's a little bit further away than Richmond. It's like 3.5 hours. It's like an hour past Richmond. So I'm like 50-50 right now. It also kind of depends on my work schedule.
Stan, are you going to the AMPS Nats?
It depends. I've never been to an AMPS Nationals. I think that would be an AMPS blast.
And then you also went to, did you go to the Model Fiesta, right? That was just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Model Fiesta. It actually ended up being a great show. This was my first Model Fiesta. This is apparently the big show in Texas. And I know they were a little worried about COVID possibly putting a damper on things, but I think the model count poked over 700.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's in a beautiful new facility out in a place called New Brunswick. I had a great time, got to help Rob with, he was the head judge, and I got tagged to of all things, lead up sci-fi, which was crazy. But that aside, it was a real good turnout. Cars were insane. The amount of cars were amazing because there's a huge Houston club that came up. Had a good time. Yeah, did fairly well.
You always do because your stuff kicks ass.
Thanks. Plus, it was fun because when you're in Southern California and you're hanging out with, again, people like Wexler and so on. And tell me if you guys experience this too in your local shows. You sort of get slotted as to who you are and what you do and what to expect from you, right? I think I shared with you guys last night that the only way I usually can beat Jim is if he just doesn't show up. So you go, you participate, you have some fun, lifelong friends at that point, but it's a good time. You come here, no one's seen your stuff before, at least not in person. But 95% of what I took 13 models, and they'd all been published except for one. So it was always fun talking to people, asking questions. They hadn't seen the stuff before. So yeah, it was good.
We are proud to partner with Tankraft. They are a fabulous company that makes the highest quality products. They have some incredible new products coming in 2022. New mats, new products, and some incredibly cool stuff that they will be announcing very soon. In the meantime, check out tankraft.com and see how one of their Pro Modeler mats and one of their awesome aluminium glue bases can really improve your workbench. The correct way of saying that metal.
Not literally the wrong way.
How many eyes are in aluminum?
You just remove one. I'm sorry. It's wrong. It's just...
Yeah, whatever.
Now that's a hill I'll die on. It's aluminium. Aluminum.
Hey, Ivan, if it helps, we have a town in Utah called Hurricane. So
yeah,
you got me on that one. But
there you go.
It's pavement, not sidewalk. Speaking of Tankraft, they sponsored one of our grand prizes in the Posse's huge giveaway last episode, and Ace of Spades Model Works ended up taking that prize home. We had a great time giving away dozens of prizes to the Posse. By the way, we have heard from most of you, but not all of the lucky winners yet. So if you are one of our winners, make sure you email us at theplasticpossepodcast@gmail.com so we can get your stuff out to you as soon as we can. Racquetball. It's tennis.
Soccer.
Trash can. It's a bin.
Hey, soccer was their word first.
Football.
They gave it to us.
Soda. It's pop.
Well, it depends on what part of this country you're in.
I'll do this all night.
I love pop, so I'm with you on that one.
What about soda pop? Because I've heard it said that way too.
Anarchists say that.
Is it my turn now?
It's your turn.
Can I go now, Ivan?
Yeah, I'm going to get these in all night. Go ahead.
It's time to send a shout out to the Posse Outriders. These are listeners who support the Posse by becoming Patreon subscribers, which apparently we have now. We have recently seen strong support with lots of new supporters coming on board to support the podcast. If you would like to support the Triple P and become one of the Plastic Posse Outriders, it's really easy. Just head on over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Plastic Posse Podcast, and set up a recurring donation there. You can donate any amount you would like, and this helps support us and offset costs to bring you the Triple P. The Posse Outriders for episode 38 are Mike Bird, Jeremy Elliott, Mike Talley, Steve Baker, Mediocre Middle-Aged Modeler, I recognize you from Mike Rinaldi streams, Dan Knopfel, Rick Lewis, Eric Daglish, Brian McFeeters, Bruce the Model Noob, Matt O'Mara, Grant Mayberry, thank you Grant, Paul Alexander Crystal, David Waples, Ethan Oddmill, Jamie Adamson, Steve Schaefer, and Rick Cooper. Well done, deputies. We appreciate your support.
You can also make a one-time donation to the Posse via PayPal. To do this, just go to our website, plasticpossepodcast.buzzsprout.com. In the upper right-hand corner, just click the little heart icon, and you can donate any amount you'd like. You certainly don't have to donate, but we truly do appreciate your support. Would also appreciate it if you'd support us by leaving a review wherever you listen to the podcast. A 5-star review helps the Posse be more visible to people searching for modeling podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, please stop by the Plastic Posse Podcast YouTube channel by subscribing. We have some live streams there, and we just added our stream with the Interesting Model Company. We also plan on more live streams very soon, including our live stream coming Friday, February 11th, featuring a very special guest. We're excited about this, so stay tuned to our Facebook page for more details as it gets closer.
Sweet. And now it's time to take a few moments and get to know our special guest. So joining us tonight, as we all know, is Stan Spooner. He is a fantastic modeler from the Southern California region, recently relocated to Texas, owner, operator, chief mastermind over at the Model Box social media page as well, that just started up. So highly recommend everybody go check it out. So Stan, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well. Thanks for letting me join in the fun, guys.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We've been wanting to get you on a long time. I've certainly been a fan of your work for a very long time. Had the opportunity to see it in person twice, both at the Nats, the first time in Phoenix, and then you had your T55, which I think all these folks saw too, in absentia at the recent Nats in Vegas. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, thanks for that. I was scheduled to take my family on a year-long delayed family trip to Hawaii the day we were going to come back from the Nats. And with everything going on, my wife said, "You do realize that you will be disowned as the father of this family if you come down with COVID." So I had to make a last minute call, and Wexler packed up the T55 and drove it out, and Chris and Rob set it up on the table for me and got it registered, and to no avail. But that having been said, it was still fun to have it make an appearance out there.
For sure. I really enjoyed seeing it. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, whoa, Stan's here. And then disappointed to hear that you didn't attend. But certainly the right choice, especially the family trip to Hawaii.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be here today if you went and caught COVID. So I appreciate that.
True, absolutely. Or I would be living in some cold apartment because I was being forced. I have no idea.
So Stan, let's take a trip back to maybe, what got you started into modeling at your earliest age? What attracted you to it, and then what's drawn you to Armor these days? And
when I was 6 years old, we went on our one and only family vacation, and it was a cabin up in the mountains in Southern California. And my father took me in town to a little store that was there to get some squirrel feed, right? Because there's squirrels running all over the place. And they had a little hobby aisle in the store. And in this hobby aisle, they had a few models, and they had the brand new Aurora Batman hanging from the dead tree stump with the owl. If you're familiar with old vintage, Aurora figure models, that was like, it was amazing. So my dad caved, we bought it, we glued it all together at the kitchen table, and then hand painted it. He let me try a couple things, but he obviously managed the larger areas. And I still have that model to this day. Very first model I ever made. And my dad, from that point, obviously saw that I was interested in it, tried to get my brother and I into balsa. That didn't work because that's what he grew up with. And then one day he came home and gave my brother and I each, I think my brother got the Monogram F105 and I got the F104. And I was hooked, dude. There was more Pactra paint on my bedspread than in the models. I was building all the time, to the point where my brother would be given a model during a holiday and he'd set it up on a TV tray in our bedroom and stop and take a break from it. And I'd sneak in glue parts, and he felt pissed off at me, but it was fun. So did that until I discovered girls, like most of us do. There's sort of a cyclical curve in life, right? Get back into it. I got back into it after I got married. I married a lovely lady, Jerry, who just puts up with it. Let's put it that way. And started building aircraft again. And then, in 2002, Marcus was out in Southern California for Tamiya Con, stayed at my house, saw my Diwatine 520 that I painted in Vichy markings and said, I want to publish it. And that's where it started. So this May, it will be 20 years I've been publishing this stuff.
Nice. And you hit on a topic there that I'd love to discuss, because I'm pretty sure some of our listeners are unaware of what is this event you call Tamiya Con?
Wow, dude, that was like the golden ring on the carousel of modeling prizes. Any of you guys ever get to go? Was that all before your time?
I knew about it, only in dreams.
It was a mythical land located in Southern California. Tamiya's headquarters was in South Orange County for North America. They hosted the most amazing 2-day event. Blow you away. First of all, modelers came from all borders across the country. Zip to the end, the 4 top prizes were a 1-week all expense paid trip to Japan for the Shizuoka model show. Your models were put on display there, and it's the only time you would ever see thousands of people line up in a row, very orderly, to file by and look at them. It was mind-blowing. The contest was a blast. Massive categories, huge sales tents, huge raffles. The stuff that they would do for you as a guest was absolutely amazing, and just had a great time for years. And then I would set up and coordinate a party for all the guys that I knew that were coming into town. And we would have what we called the brew and sprue at my house. Burnt meat and beer and some bourbon were all on the menu. And it got late and it got loud and a bunch of old farts laughing it up. So yeah, it was a great time.
That's awesome. I think, as a kid, I always wanted to go because of that all expense paid to Japan. Yeah. For 1 week. You never hear about that. It's incredible. And Mr. Tamiya himself picked the winners. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And you know what? When you're in the thick of it and he picks a particular model and you were looking at it going, what in the world was he thinking when this is over here and this is over here? But you got to remember two key things. First of all, that man has seen more models than all of us ever combined, right? I mean, he lives and eats and breathes this stuff. But number two, it's his company. His name's on it, right? He writes the check for this. He has every right to pick what it is that he wants. That said, there were some truly amazing builds that over the years floated to the top. I'm really blessed to know a lot of guys that got to go, and I would live vicariously through them. I could not at the time. I was working for Tamiya as their agency, so that sort of put the kibosh on that one. But that said, it was a blast. Marcus would come into town, spend a week at our place, do the show. Yeah, it was a good time for all.
That's awesome. And the winners, and just to be clear, they were, I think he chose one armor, one aircraft, one auto, one dio, or was it whatever he liked that day?
No, the categories were more ethereal than that. It was like best finish.
Okay.
Best story, I think it was. Best, I forgot there was a third one, and then there was the overall grand prize, which had a formal name to it. I don't remember what that was. So because of that, the mix of models that won were different every year.
I remember seeing them. I think they were published in fine scale, and certainly they were on hyperscale. People posted pictures, and I remember always the story like, well, if you want to win a Tamiya Con, you make the best out of a Tamiya kit. Don't convert it or don't do anything special, like showcase the kit. I don't know. There was rumors online, and everybody had their little way of trying to win, I guess.
I've got a great story. One of my dear buddies, a guy named John Quint. All right, who here is an aircraft builder? Anybody an aircraft builder? Okay, aircraft. All right.
We tolerate
so
them.
When you talk to Marcus, Marcus will verify this story. John Quint, probably one of the most amazing aircraft builders I've ever known. Accurizer, just mind-blowingly talented. And he was a folklore freak. He knew everything inside and out. So when Tamiya came out with their D9, the first year he did it, he spent an entire year, tricked it out to the nth degree, and I never will forget. He put it on the table, and next to it is a piece of paper. I'm going, what's this? He says, well, this is everything I had to fix. I'm going, dude, you're not going to win telling the guy that owns the company what he screwed up on your model, and you had to fix it. He goes, no, they'll appreciate it. Didn't even get noticed to any degree. So the next year, he's all burned out, grumble. And this guy, had won serious national awards and stuff beforehand, and all well-deserved. Another year goes by, and I take him to lunch. I said, okay, listen, we're going to do an experiment. You've got to put it on the table. It's been 2 years since he's seen it, and no paper. Just put it on the table and let him see it. And let's see what happens. And he goes, yeah, whatever. I said, at the very least, come over. We'll have the dinner. We'll do the brew and sprue. We'll hang out. We'll have some laughs. Okay, great. He wins. Goes to Japan. So, you don't slap the host, man.
So let's fast forward a little bit. You find yourself in Texas. Tell us a little bit about the experience, the brand that you're looking to create with the model box, and what prompted you to do it, and where do you see it going, and what kind of community do you want to create with it?
I think the impetus behind this is, to a great degree, honestly, came out of COVID. Right? We're all sort of locked down. We're fortunate that we all have a hobby where we're fairly used to self-isolating and so on. And our local AMPS club, which was They have a real active IPMS club out there in SoCal as well, but I was more involved with the AMPS guys, and they would do Zoom meetings like everybody else was doing Zoom meetings and so on. But let's face it, you're missing community, right? And missing being next to your friends and joking around. And that whole year, I did some building, did no painting. At the time, I had a corner of the garage, right, that I was using, and it just didn't have the mojo. I don't know about you guys, but I've got to feel like I'm ready to paint. But I got the Sheraton almost finished at that point. Did a Russian APC, the Boomerang by Zvesta. As I'm packing everything up and coming out here to Texas, I was going to miss community. I was going to miss my friends. So I'm very close to 3 or 4 of these guys. We did life. We traveled together. And as families, not as just to go to model shows and stuff. And I was really praying that I would get the right mix of guys out here and make great friends and have community. Fast forward, moved out a year ago tomorrow. And sure enough, the first 2 people I build I meet are guys Rob Booth and Chris McLean. Great salt of the earth guys, just love them to death. And boom, immediately I have community. So I started thinking, you know what? It's the community, it's the friends that makes this. It really, really is. And it's the relationships that make this hobby well worth it. I would never have the opportunity to talk to you about how to put the front glacis plate on your mini art kit, but you make a relationship, make a connection, you have a chance to help someone, and memories and stuff like that grow from there. So the model box grew out of trying to tell those stories. Yes, we all get free crap in the mail and we get to review it every once in a while. Yes, we buy something that we think is really cool and get a chance to talk about that. That's all well and good. But if we can create a place where we can promote community, and not just my group of friends, but others that are doing this, like Scott Bricker's Basement Builders out of DC. I don't know if you guys have ever been to his Facebook page, but dude, he's been doing this for like 11 years. Every week, a group of like 6 or 8 guys get together in his basement. The model box, as it says, is Model Talk and Social Club. The first few posts were out there about products and my builds and stuff. If people weren't aware of me and what it is I do, I got to share about Alex De Leon, that crazy talented man, wanting my turtle that was on display at San Antonio. He loved it. He's going, I want it. I'm going, I'm not selling it to you. He goes, but I want it. And I said, dude, it's yours. I mean, how often do you get someone of that caliber wanting your model in their collection? Gave it to him. He turned around and gave me one of his 2 commemorative knives that he had for working the Border Patrol for all those years. Pretty amazing stuff. And I was just honored. And I'm going, okay, it's time. Let's talk this story. I'm going to start posting more and more stories about not even just the groups that I've been involved with, the guys, but other groups, and start to promote the opportunity for people to reach out and make connections.
That's awesome. And I see a lot of similarities, between the model box and what we have here at the Plastic Posse. That was, essentially Scott's charter from day one, I feel. And, it's certainly something, like you said, the models are models, but it's really about the friendship. And I love what you said, you have a core group of guys, you look forward to the Nats. Before the Nats is even over, you're planning for the next year. And, that's the type of, friendship, relationship that it's tough to find in life. And this hobby affords that. And, going to the gentleman, Chris McLean is an excellent example. We pull into, Vegas. He's never met us. He shoots me a message like, hey, I'm hanging, I'm here. My dad couldn't make it. And I'm like, well, join us. And it's great to know that he's in your community, and it's great to see what you're doing in San Antonio.
Yeah, Chris was like the first guy that greeted me walking in the door. Since then, I'm thrilled to find out his felony convictions have been overturned. So he's just that guy. And then halfway through the first meeting, Rob finds out where I live, which I'm about an hour from Rob. I live about 30 minutes outside of San Antonio. Rob Rob doesn't live in the middle of nowhere, but you can see it from there. We go out to Rob's house, whenever I can. He has it every week and has a faithful group of guys that go out there. Awesome. Has the most beautiful man cave room, sets up tables for us all, pours us a nice shot of bourbon, and off we go.
Yeah, talk about a community builder. I mean, Rob, whether it's, his role at IPMS or locally there in San Antonio, or just, the first time we met him at Nats, I mean, that guy just builds community, and he's always looking to contribute to the model community at large. He has such a great heart and such a great spirit, and he's not a slacker either, man. The guy's a great builder. I actually I have him building a piece of armor, and he's ready to shoot me, I'm sure, multiple times. But what's funny is he goes, "I'm going to do something easy." So he picks up a 72nd scale MATV. Now, if you have any idea,
it's a Matchbox car.
Got photo etch interior and everything. Going, dude, you're nuts. You're absolutely nuts. He goes, "No, I can do it. Well, the other day I got a photo sent to me of a scratch built out of styrene center radio rack because he said I just bollocks the photo etch, and this is gonna be close enough. I said, "Man, put a tarp on it. Call it a day."
For sure.
Anyway, yeah, it's fun group of guys out here, and we're looking forward to have the Nats out here a year after this.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. I can't wait. We're going to drag Ivan over again. He can come to the great state of Texas.
Brew and Screw, my house, during that week. All right. It'll be fun. Yeah.
It sounds awesome.
So let's fast forward a little bit, maybe to what's your next build? You just finished the gorgeous, FA Miniatures tank, and you finished the Sheridan. What's next on your plate?
Well, my queue exists of things, unfortunately or unfortunately, are things that all have to get done for publications. So the low-hanging fruit at this point and the most urgent is for David Grummett. I've got to finish a quarter scale, and you may have seen it on my Stan Spooner page, quarter scale BMP2.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
In Ukrainian clad hillbilly armor. Again, I don't know about you guys, but doing the photo reference search on this stuff is some of my favorite aspects of these builds. I can see an RPG go right through the side of those bed springs hung on the side. But anyway, that having been said, so Tank Mania did a beautiful resin kit of that. I'm tricking it out, building a scene, scratch build a monument that I was sent some photo reference on. And that's for David. And then I've got to start painting and finishing everything that goes around it. The Boomerang, the Russian APC, their newest APC that I scratch built all the most current mods that they are. I think they're testing it in Syria. At least that's what I understand. And the two kits that are out there is the Zavesta and the Panda kit, neither of which have any of the anti-personnel and smoke discharger mods that are on there. And met up with a great guy, Slava, in Russia, who was kind enough to send me a bunch of pictures that he had from parades. This is stuff that you're not going to get in a publication. And then I found a video online where I did a bunch of screen grabs, scratch built all of that. So that's going in Abrams Squad. So got to finish that up next.
Nice. Yeah. Going back to the BMP2, our friend Aaron Cook, huge 148 scale armor fan. And when you started posting pictures, he was going nuts in our chat because, someone got a hold of it and someone very capable got a hold of it. So we're certainly looking forward to what you do with that. And like you said, the reference material behind those vehicles in conflict right now it's honestly a treasure trove and super inspiring and influencing for styles as well, and can prove every IPMS judge wrong when they say things are overweathered.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's face it, you want a subject where you can just go crazy with battle damage, add-on armor. Literally, I found a picture, I'm not kidding you, of the BMP2. Off the back of it is a orange life preserver ring.
Nice.
And why? I'm in the train, right? It's hanging off the back like it was a set of those chrome balls they hang from the right? But I'm putting it on there, not the chrome balls, the life preserver. But it's just you're going like, why not? It's not a bucket, but hey.
Right, right.
It's not a bucket. That's great.
The first armor piece I ever got published was for our infamous friend Marcus, was the 48 scale Sherman, and that was in 05 because I needed a break from the Mustang book. And quite honestly, I was hooked because I didn't have to paint a cockpit, man. Just close that sucker up. And of course, now with full interior kits, you didn't dodge that bullet anymore. So
yeah, and armor modelers, we get all the chicks too, so that's the benefit.
Yeah. Do me a favor, fill me in later how that works. Yeah.
Just wait until he gets to America.
Yeah.
I'm drowning in babes.
Slayer. He's a slayer. So Stan, moving forward, one of the things I've always admired about your work is really the way you display it. It's simple, it's classy, but it's just innovative. You have your square base, and then it looks like a home plate kind of turned a little bit sideways,
right?
And then you do the custom graphics on it, and I think it's extremely professional the way you present your pieces, and I just like it. What gave you the idea to do that? Is this your graphic design nature?
Oh yeah, I mean, as a living, I do 3-dimensional environmental signage design. We do it for Disney and Warner and Universal and all types of municipal and transportation clients and just all types of things. So I tend to think 3-dimensionally. And to be completely honest with you, I suck at dioramas. I absolutely blow. I have no idea what I'm doing. I've got that giant FAQ book. I open it up, I fan through it and go, yeah, no. And someday I'm going to have to face that. I got to do a little base for the Sheridan. But in the interim, this became something that allowed me to put the tank down on the table at a 3/4 front view, which I always think is the most appealing angle. Let's face it, if you put that down on a 3/4 view on a square base, the first judge that's going to come up is going to turn that thing, face forward, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to look at that down the front line and see whatever it is they think they want to see. By having it on that base and by having then the graphics on the parallel baseline with the edge of the table, they can't turn it. They got to look at it at a 3/4 view. Now, eventually, in judging, they'll turn it around and stuff on that base, but at least it has a chance to be seen the way I want to see it.
That's awesome. So, Stan, one of the questions we love to ask our guests is, what is your magnum opus project? If you had to look into the future and pick a build that you want to hang your hat on before it's all over, what would that be?
Well, what's funny is, and I've forgotten Daniel's last name, Spanish modeler that works for AK.
Zamabide.
Yeah, that's easy for you to say. So Daniel about 8 months ago popped up with his first steps in a project that I've been hoarding crap for a couple of years now. I am a huge fan of the XF5 U-Flying Pancake. I always have been. Way back in the day, the first Nats I ever went to was Albuquerque. Drove out with a buddy of mine. And there was a guy, remember the little Hasegawa 72nd scale kit? There was a guy that did one in Israeli markings. Like we had sold these off like we do surplus to anybody else. And it was magic, man. It was such a cool story. He did such a beautiful job on it, and it stuck with me. So I bought the quarter scale resin kit when it came out. And I forgot who the company was by, but it was really rough. It was one of those where you're going, yeah, do me later, put the box on the shelf. And then Kitty Hawk came out with their kit. Of course, I had to buy two because, Ivan, where you choose to break every single thing on your tank and fix it, it takes me two kits to build one because I'm launching parts off into the stratosphere, apparently. So I bought two, and I wanted to do one in Korean service. Well, then Daniel's popping up with his. That's not going to keep from doing it, and I'm going to approach mine a little bit differently. But as far as aircraft, that's what I'm putting my foot back into the pond with. And then, I don't know, I used to build cars when I was a kid. I love that stuff. There will be a time when I actually get back into that. And I love IMSA, Le Mans type subjects from the late 60s. My Holy Grail kit, I know you guys were talking about this the other day, if someone actually finally popped up with a quarter scale MI-28.
Okay.
Just sign me up and lock me in a room because I'm done. I have very esoteric taste. Matter of fact, the only thing I'm not really don't have in the collection a lot of, they're ships. So there's a few in there, but not a lot of them.
And then sci-fi too, I assume, right?
Oh yeah. And I have a fair stash of mech. Of course, it's that great mashup of armor and sci-fi and stuff like that. A few Warhammer kits. I enjoy that stuff. It's complete freedom.
Stan, I have 3 full armies, so I know.
Do you really?
full well how expensive Warhammer shit is.
There you go.
Drugs are cheaper.
Yeah, they are. That's on top of everything you can see behind me.
If you guys ever get a chance, come out to Southern California, go to Brookhurst Hobbies. Henry Tremblay's shop is just, it's not, it doesn't have multiple levels like Colpar does, but it is a massive selection of kits on the shelf. Tons of gaming as well. Has a whole separate 2,500 square footprint for gaming nights. And 5 years ago today, we started our model club out there called Sprue Cutters. And every year we hosted a show. And this was our first show 5 years ago. I guess it would have been last Saturday. 700 plus models for a hobby shop show is not bad. He's very generous and speaking into the different clubs in the areas. Yeah, it's well worth the trip, man.
Definitely need to make a trip back to SoCal.
Take your credit cards, a block of ice, and then go.
Well, the problem is I have an Apple Watch, so I can just scan it before I leave.
All right, you lose.
Well, Stan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. Your commentary on this episode isn't certainly over, and we're going to go into some more of our segments, and we'd love for your contributions there as well. But again, thank you so much for this conversation. It's really great, and I want to encourage all of our listeners in the Texas area, please. We'll certainly share the model box on our Facebook page. But again, we'll have Stan's information up there as well. If you're close by, reach out, become a part of that community and, champion it. And we look forward to coming down and seeing you sometime.
It'll be fun. We'll see you guys in a little over a year.
Sounds good. Will we see you in Omaha?
Reservations will be made. I will register for the show, and it really is going to depend on work schedule for the other business, and I have grandbabies showing up next week, so we'll see how all that goes. That said, that's the intention.
Outstanding. We will definitely have a drink for you there. We'll pound cheeseburgers or whatever Ivan wants that night. Tacos from Taco Bell, or
yeah, just put that weight loss on hold, Ivan. Just put that on hold.
I'm losing it just so I can put it all back on.
All right, listeners, we're going to jump into our next segment. We're going to bring something back that we haven't talked about in a little while, and it is social media shoutouts, except we're going to give it a little twist this time. Instead of calling out specific profiles, we're going to have a quick look around the social media environment and pick out things that we've liked within the last week or so and just talk about them. And, it could be anything from a build from a modeler to a new release. To something that just caught their eye. And, I'll just start off with Scott.
Yeah, I've been watching a guy's channel. His name's Chris Olson. He's on all the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. But the project that he's been doing that caught my eye is he's working on one of those Polar Lights 350th scale Klingon Katinga battle cruisers. And he's doing the full paint work and lights and everything else. So I've been looking at that, and he's been releasing frequent updates and videos on that over on his YouTube platform. So I really have been following that with interest. So yeah, that's what kind of caught my eye.
Awesome. Ivan, what was on your radar this last week?
I shared it to my Facebook page, and it's because it stood out to me just as soon as I saw it. It was it's in an SU-76 by Marion Berg. It was on the Mini Art Fan Group's Facebook page, and it's just gorgeous. It's only half built, but it's because he's doing all the paint work on the hull, and it's just outstanding. The layers of green. Green is a great color to work with, but they've just done such a fantastic job. Around the edges, it's darker, and there's so many layers of different tones, different patinas, and it's nicely chipped. It's weathered, but it's not in your face. Everything's very deliberate. It's like very precisely executed. It's just a gorgeous looking piece of work, and it's only half done. But if you want to check that out, it's on the Mini Art Fan Group's Facebook page. It's the SU-76 by Marion Berg. It's stunning.
Yeah, it is gorgeous.
Yeah, I saw that one. It's really, really nice. Great paint work, like you said.
TJ, what caught your eye this past week?
What caught my eye, this was actually today, just his one particular post. There's a modeler named Andy Butcher. He goes by ABC Mecha on Instagram, and I believe also on Facebook.
Yep.
He is currently building a Machine & Krieger Falke falcon, however you want to say it. The thing that looks like a flying lobster. It's awesome. It's one of the coolest designs. He's doing one, and it's he lives in Australia, so it's wintertime. Or no, it's cold there, but it's summertime. So he is doing a winter theme, even though it's not winter there. And it is a whitewash. And he claims he's never done a whitewash before. And I have a hard time believing that because it's really good.
Yeah, he's been posting his whole kind of SBS on that almost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's really nice. And correct me if I'm wrong, he hand brushed the whole thing.
No, I think some of it's hand brushed, and I think some of it is airbrushed. Okay. It has a metallic undercoat that I know he airbrushed, but I think the color coats were hand brushed.
Right, and that's what impressed me the most is where he had a metallic undercoat and then hand brushed on top of it, and I'm just thinking like that's impossible in my mind.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It looks really good,
and his Luna Diver was good too.
Oh, his Luna Diver is. I've told him multiple times. I share his stuff in like my Instagram story like all the time. It's really good. He's super good modeler.
Yeah, and he only has 266 followers. He deserves I
don't know
thousands.
Why. He should have way more than that.
That is awesome. I'll just go real quick. What caught my eye is a close friend of the pods, which is Darren from the Model Geeks. His F-18, his Ming Hornet. Holy cow! It is looking fantastic. He is slamming that thing together and making it look easy. The finish is absolutely gorgeous. He just shared some pictures in our text message group not too long ago and I think he shared them online too. And we'll be sure to put him on the page where his weathering and the subtle tones in the different panels is just gorgeous. And then his alignment on everything is chef's kiss. He's making that kit look easy, and I kind of want one now just based on his build.
He is 100% crushing that thing. So he talks about it in their episode that came out today when we were recording. I want to say he started that kit January 1st. So he has like less than a month of work on that kit, and I think he's getting really close to being done.
That's crazy.
And it is so clean. I don't know how these aircraft guys do it. I don't know. It boggles my mind. But
and the Hornet, it doesn't matter if it's the Hasegawa kit, if it's the main kit, they have kind of a reputation of really being difficult in the nose section and in the aft section where the engines are. They just are problematic for modelers. So seeing Darren do such a high quality job in such a short time, it's pretty inspiring stuff.
Yeah, I was about to mention that. I love the progress he's making on it because ever since that kit came out, all I've seen is people whinge about it not being buildable. So it's nice to actually see someone get it together and build it. And he's doing it really well.
Yeah, and he'll probably win at Nationals, and we'll have to buy him a drink, and we won't hear the end of it. So that's who Darren is. But no, shout out to Darren. Really great work. Keep it up. Very inspiring to all of us who build ground pounders, and maybe we'll come over to your arena sometime.
Oh, when I see it, he said he's taking it to the ODO. So when I see it in person, I'll be sure to let everyone know how good it is.
Nice, Doug. I'm going to put you on the spot. What's caught your eye this last week?
I think I told you guys about it. This miniature painter came up on Instagram from England. She goes by the moniker Miniature Polilla. She's got some fun stuff here. She's not like overly detailed, but she does some really, really quality work and a lot of Warhammer stuff and other miniatures that she does. And apparently she likes cats.
That's always a plus.
I think she just got 4 more followers there based on that last caveat there. Stan, you just popped in for tonight. You didn't get the brief, but anything on the internet in this last week caught your eye?
Friends in parallel, Luke Pitt out of Australia is building the same Tank Mania BMP2, only he's doing I think it's Syrian, the later version with doesn't have the original issued expanded skirts. It's got bolt-on skirts and bolt-on armor on the sides. And dude's going to town. Luke is 48 scale. He's been, doing that 48 scale article for Brett forever. It's fun to see a whole different take on how he's approaching it. And admittedly, I'm stealing a couple ideas, so I'm not above that.
I mean, Luke's a savage. His work is absolutely stellar, and he's a quarter scale master.
Oh yeah, and his figures in quarter scale. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
guys. I'm lucky I can hold him without breaking him, and he sits there and modifies them and puts expressions on their face. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, I mean, everyone, and he always has the pose where like the guy's arms draped over something, and kind of has like a look. It's just, he is very inspiring, and I've followed his work probably just as long as yours. And
It must be something in the Vegemite. I don't know.
Just a reminder, it's a biscuit, not a cookie.
Biscuits are something to put gravy on.
Don't tell me about chips versus
Crisps.
Don't even start the crisps. Chips and crisps.
It's crisps. They're crispy. It's a bonnet, not a hood. Just a reminder, the Posse is just one of several modelling podcasts out there. We are a member of a group of great podcasts, and if you would like to see the list of some of the other podcasts, plus other social media creators, head over to modelpodcasts.com and you'll find links to many of them. We also wanted to remind you all that there are lots of ways you can interact with the Posse. Get ready for a plethora of P's. You can email us on plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/plasticposse. You can also find us on Instagram at Plastic Posse Podcast, Twitter at Posse Podcast, and YouTube Plastic Posse Podcast. Last but certainly not least, we have several group builds going on. TJ, how are they all going?
So I'm going to lead off with the M3, M4 group build because holy cow, there is some like top quality work coming out of that group build right now. I'm going to start with Peter Peter. I'm going to butcher your last name, man. I'm sorry. I've said it right before. I'm not even going to try. I'm tired, so I'm just going to, you know who you are, dude.
The official logo designer of the group.
Yes. Man, the Howitzer Sherman.
Yeah, 105. Yep.
Holy it is really, really good. I've already told him this more than once. Dude, your work is fire. Quit acting like it's garbage. I hope you're listening to this. It's awesome, dude. Like, seriously, it's really, really good. That's all I have to say about his work. It's awesome. He did the OD painted out stars. Oh, so good. I love it. And Hendrik Gauss, I don't know how to say your last name, man. Again, apologize. I'm terrible with names. His 75 millimeter. I think he's doing the press steel car version of the M4.
His A1,
his dust work is so good. He started with the turret and thought he was weird for doing that. I'm like, I start with the turret too, so you're not alone.
And his figure,
yes.
Oh my god,
yeah, the tank commander figure is
wow,
freaking legit. It's so good. But his dust work is fantastic. He started working down, so now he's on I think he's done the size. I think he's down to lower hull now. Getting that like really subtle, thin layer of dust is hard. Like, and make it look convincing is difficult. I know because I've tried it and I've never been happy with it. But he's knocking that one out. Martin Drayton, I think is how you say his last name. He's finished his one build, which is a Chilean M51, I believe.
Yeah,
with a diorama. That's what Martin does. He goes by EMD Scale Works or MD Model Works or something as his Facebook page. He does dioramas. That's like his thing. And his Chilean diorama is awesome with that weird bluish color that they paint in their tanks. And now he's doing, I think it's an M4A3 with a HVSS.
Yeah.
Wrecked is one of the very famous picture, wrecked in the beach, got graffiti all over it. He started it like 2 days later. He's like almost done. I'm like, I thought I built fast, but dude, he's
crushing it.
I don't know how he's doing it. And it's really cool too. And of course, we have to mention Daniel Brooker and his improved M4. He started weathering the turret, and he's another guy that everything he does turns to gold. So,
dude, I feel like Indiana Jones. It belongs in a museum when he's done, for crying out loud.
It's so good. Last but not least, our very own JB got some color on his M4A2.
Yeah, it's about time.
You okay? So you didn't respond to my. I don't know if you saw it. What color did you use?
It's the ammo olive drab base, straight out of the bottle.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's a nice tone. So that'll just be just the foundation, and then a couple layers of whitewash will go on top of it. And I think you forgot one other person, Zach the Shizzle Nizzle Grizzle.
Yeah, I did. I forgot Zach. Okay, he's another one. He's doing stuff that he doesn't normally do. He's doing the whole post shading and all that kind of post highlighting, and It looks really good. And it's funny. I'm glad you mentioned that because him and Peter, like Peter posted things like, oh, I don't know how good it is. And Zach's like, bro, this is amazing. And then Peter's like, no, dude, yours is really good. And Zach's like, no, mine's not that good. Yours is really good. And I just stepped in. I was like, hey, you two, knock it off. Both of you are awesome. And Zach's like, okay, sorry, Dad.
I mean, Ivan, your work on the Lee as well.
Oh, yeah.
Other than continuing to break the gun off. That group is just really great. And I cannot wait to see all of these kits on the table together. It's going to be just so amazing to see.
A billion shades of olive drab.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to be awesome.
Kevin Kelly, friend of the podcast, he finished his North African British Sherman 3, and it looks really good. I'm a sucker for tan and black camo, and his is really good. I don't think we mentioned him last time. He actually finished at least 2 weeks ago. I don't think I mentioned him last time, but that kind of ties into the fact that on our spreadsheet, more and more entries are getting marked yellow, which is what the color I chose for done. So that's awesome. I think we're up to 8 builds, more than we brought, more T-34s than we brought last year. We already have more that are done and will be there. And there's a bunch that are getting really close. So that makes me happy that, as the year is starting and people are getting stuff finished and we're, everyone's making progress. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, and Stan, I just let you in. If you have Sherman pictures, feel free to share. If you have a Sherman that you finished and want to bring it to Omaha and put it on the table with us, we'd love to have you.
Sure. I think that would be fun. Whether I have a Korean War, the Tamiya kit, the Easy 8 that I'm working on that will eventually end up going to David. And we'll have to see if we can accelerate that and bring that to Omaha.
Sweet.
Hopefully I'm not replicating someone else's. More than likely someone's doing it, but can't have enough shirts on the table.
We've softened a little bit on that because now I just want people to get stuff to the table.
And I assume I heard this was slightly motivated by seeing all the patents on the table by SoCal Amps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Motivated in a good way because they did it and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And we got together and like, why don't we do that? That's awesome. Like,
It wasn't just the models. It was they showed up and they all had shirts and
I did those.
Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, it was just the esprit de corps around that build was great, and we just thought, man, that would be a blast.
I figured the guys needed the swag to show up and do that. That was fun to do that for them. That started. We were on our way to the Phoenix Nats, JB, when I first met you, and we stopped at the Patton Museum on this side of the border in California on 29 Palms, and we're going. You know what? We did the King Tiger for Denver, and we're going, this would make a great group build. And that was 2 years of builds that those guys put together. It was quite an effort. It's a lot of fun.
Inspiring.
Yeah, really impressive. Really nice.
All right. So now that we got that out of the way, we'll just touch briefly on our other podcast. The T-3485 podcast is still going on. We're still getting, for some reason, more members. People still building the kit and getting it done. It's amazing. I love it. We still have our Tamiya and Edward 148 Spitfire Mark 1/2 build going on. The TIE Fighter group build still going on. A couple of people joined that this week too. So please feel free to check out those builds on Facebook. Join up. Even if you don't want to build a kit, just look at all the cool models that are in there. And of course, we have to mention the Model Geeks A4 group build. That's going strong. I think I have everything that I'm going to get for my kit. I had to look at them, some wheels. That's what I got. I think that's the last thing that I have. I don't actually have a lot of aftermarket. I have an ejection seat, cockpit, photo etch, and the wheels. That's it.
You don't need anything else, man. That's a sweet little model.
So I'm going to build it. It'll be my first airplane that I'm going to complete. So it should be fun. Yeah. Please, if you're into those wingy things, please check out the A4 group build that the Model Geeks are hosting.
Hey, before we move on, can I say something real quick?
Of course.
Ivan, it's a stroller, not a pram.
It's a pram. They are trainers, not sneakers.
Inter podcast baiting. You gotta love it. All right. Well, now it's time for a really fun feature interview that we did with John Murphy, aka Spud. I mean, John is a world-class modeler. He's a world-class guy, former Scale Model publication editor. We got to interview him recently, and we were a little shorthanded when we interviewed Spud. So our good friend Mike Rinaldi hopped in one of our plastic Posse seats to help us do the interview. We had a great time, and I know you're going to love it. So here is the interview. Welcome to another Plastic Posse podcast interview, sponsored by Sean's Custom Model Tools, makers of the Super Sanding Blocks. Today, we are joined by a very special guest. He's a terrific armor modeler, a former editor of MMI magazine. Joining us from the UK, we want to welcome John Murphy, aka Spud, to the Triple P. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks very much for having me. Really looking forward to it tonight.
Also joining me today are Ivan Jensen-Taylor, and we also have a very special Plastic Posse guest interviewer who you just might know. Mike Rinaldi joins us as well. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that nice introduction. And Spud, hello. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Mike. Good to see you, yeah.
So Mike and John are old friends. So let's start out with Mike. When did you first meet Spud?
Ooh, that's a good question. I want to say... it's going to be one of the Euros. And John, you probably remember more than I do in terms of the dates, but maybe 06 or 07?
Yeah.
In person?
I think it was around that time. Yeah. Excuse me. I think my memory's just as bad as it probably was.
To go back in history before certain publications, it was probably your time with ADH Publishing, I think.
I think it was, yeah.
It was called ADH, yeah.
It was, yeah, Model Military.
Because I think you'd started that mag,
that's right.
The armor one.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just after I left the Air Force, so it was kind of quite a career change.
Yeah, a little bit.
Were you guys, did you guys know each other online from like Missing Links, or how did that connection initially start? Or was it that in-person meeting?
I think it was sort of in person, and I think it was through sort of mutual friends really as well, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. You know, at Euro. And I think at Euro Militaire, it was just all the names, certainly the European names throughout the hobby. It was the event to come to. And, you know, you'd be stood at the bar or in the show and someone would sort of go, oh, is that such and such over there? And then the introductions just started. And the thing with that show, it was mainly the social side in the evening when everybody was having a beer or so. And, you know, the friendships were sort of formulated from there.
I'm trying to think. It was probably Spencer and Darren and you and the Smith brothers and it's probably the core at the South Cliff.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that's what I remember anyway. So
yeah, it was one of those where, you know, an outsider would just assume it was just a load of sort of geeks talking models, which it was, but the amount of alcohol that would be consumed as well was, and the stories, it was just absolutely brilliant. You know, and it was such an amazing thing to have people from all over the world with this sort of common interest and a real passion for it. And you know, it's just, and like I say, you know, it makes the world a small place when you've got friends from everywhere. You know, if I was to travel anywhere now, you know, you could quick message on Facebook and someone would say, oh, I only live down the road, pop and visit, you know, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys have collaborated for years. I mean, obviously, you're two of the best armor modelers that are out there. I mean, just admire both of your work. But Mike, how do you see John's work, and maybe how has that inspired what you do as a modeler?
Well, I'd say, you know, one of the things for me, looking back at the, you know, maybe probably John, I think we were close to 10 years of just kind of overlap and working together on and off, and, you know, probably through, you know, maybe 6-7 years directly where we kind of crossed paths with all the kind of projects we were involved with. You know, John's precision is always something I look at. I always pay attention to kind of his attention to detail, you know, what he's trying to do and how he's trying to do it and his efforts to replicate stuff. So that's always something I respect a lot when modelers, it's as much as of their journey, and I'm watching kind of what's going on with it and how they pursue their goals, if you will. And then, you know, John's signature style, you know, he's got this, it's a precision to it, you know, and I think that's something that really reflects upon kind of who he is. And you can see it when you know him, and you learn the kind of how he talks about things. And then it translates into the, he's actually shared some of his recent work with me, and you almost can't tell it's a model at certain points in time, where you're kind of like, he's bullshitting you because he's taking a picture of a real tank, and he's so there is that. And in the group of people we're talking about in particular, especially from the UK, even though some of them are spread around the world a little bit, it really is, that's the thing I take is kind of the research that they do, the passion that they have, and then kind of they do have a level of precision that they impart into what they do. And I appreciate that because I try myself. So that's usually what I take away when I look at Spud's work in particular.
Well, I would definitely agree with that. Looking at like the toolboxes on his M5 that he did, there was a couple of photos he took, and I was exactly what you said. It's like, this is a real tank. There's no way this is a model, just the attention to detail for the, the hinges and the weathering of that.
I expected him to get worse as he got older, but that's not the case. So apparently he's gotten really, really good. So now we're in trouble.
I think the pressure's off that I'm not sort of constantly churning articles out for magazines, that I can sort of now take my time, and it's just really just a hobby again. And, I've been able to sort of not feel you've got to finish it and, cut corners. And now I can sort of just put it aside, come back when I'm motivated, and and it's like with Mike's stuff with the oil paint rendering, where you just do small sections at a time, and then the project doesn't become overwhelming, where you just get to the point where you just want to rush it and get it finished. So, that's made a huge difference, that I've slowed down, if anything.
Well, that sort of leads into my next question for you, John, kind of the same question I asked Mike. How has your friendship and Mike's work really played a role in how you see your modeling and how you do your modeling?
I think we all do the same with Spencer. Guys like Darren Thompson, whose scratch building is just unbelievable. And we tend to sort of pinch other people's sort of parts of their ideas or the techniques they're using. And then I may sort of use a slightly different product or a slightly different way. And it's almost like a gradual upward spiral where we're all sort of borrowing ideas, but it helps sort of improve everybody. But certainly, I've been watching Mike's videos and they've been great, so useful. And, I look back to the magazine times where, all you have is one photograph of a paintbrush touching the model and a description of, I'm doing this.
And that's all fake. We're all faking that.
Yeah, I know. I look back, and if someone could see where I've got bottles and jars with blue tack on top and paintbrushes, and someone else's hand holding an airbrush and stuff like that, to try and then take the pictures. Where now you watch the videos, and it's just made things so much easier for everybody. And like say, I'll do stuff with Mike, and where I've tried a technique, I'll just send a couple of pictures and just sort of say, I've just tried this. What do you think? And hopefully it gets put in the sort of the bank of your useful tips and techniques.
Yeah, we reconnected probably over the COVID kind of situation where we kind of shared our recent lockdown stories. Yeah. And I think Spud and I had probably spoken for maybe 2 or 3 years in between stuff, and I know you've had some life changes on your end with family and work and stuff, so we lost track, but then we've reconnected. But it was good because what we do is we'll talk about certain colors and certain products, and then figure out kind of like, okay, we like to use it for this, and we have similar visions of what we think it'll happen with the product or whatever, and so it's nice because we speak that same language in terms of finishing what we're looking for. So we've always been able to really quickly communicate and share stuff. I think the one I remember the Australian Centurion from way back was one I really remember from Spud. I'm trying to remember some older pieces from you. As we track, some of the earlier works that we were doing back in the early 2010s and stuff. Yeah. It's been a journey.
I'm trying to think, because after a few years, I tend to sort of rob all the useful bits off of a model, and then it goes in the bin, or it gets used as a sort of a test piece for the sort of
Well, the deadline comment hits home. When you talk about I think Spencer and other guys like Marcus would probably say the same too. Where that when you're crunching under that deadline, man, it's a different conversation.
That's right.
And it's not a contest deadline.
No,
it's different.
You have to use sort of techniques that will definitely work. But I'm my own worst enemy.
You take less risk.
Yeah, or I intend to, and then I'll start experimenting when I really don't have the time, and it's one of those where you just got to keep your fingers crossed that you don't mess it up, and you put an undue pressure on yourself. But Marcus, bless him, when I was doing stuff for the Tamiya magazine, you'd get a kit on a Monday in the post, and then you'd get, is there any chance you could get this finished by Friday? And, you know, it's like, and a working full
photos and text, by the way. Yeah, the whole thing.
So, and, you know, 99% of the time I would get it done. And of course, you go to a hobby show and people, you know, that you do the thing where you lay the magazine out in front of the model so they can see that that's the model from the magazine. And then people go, oh, how long did you take to build this? And you go, oh, 5 days. And they go, yeah, really? And you go, no, seriously?
Ivan, you know something about that, right?
Yeah. I'm always getting, there's no deadline, there's no rush, take your time. And then 4 days later, so how are you getting on with this?
Yeah.
It's still in the box with the plastic.
It's funny because John talks about it like it's no big deal, but I think what we're talking about now, listening to Spud, is that in the sense that you're kind of, not to say back, but you're definitely participating again.
Yes,
and you're enjoying the hobby. And now, like what you it's an off the cuff comment, but it's so true that if you don't have to do it in 5 days, what Spud's really capable of, I'm not sure we really know yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think your skills are probably going to blossom and peak. And that's probably it's great for everybody and you, and scary for some of us. So we're like, okay, but that's kind of really that time to breathe.
Yeah.
And to get the stuff out the way you kind of really had always wanted to do it. It's going to be fun watching what you do with the next, few projects, for sure.
Yeah. I think it was a case of having finished with the magazines. The last one was the original when it was owned by MIG, the Weather End magazine. And I did a few issues there, and it was just, I was working full time for EasyJet, and to get calls from a certain person to sort of say, how are you getting on? How much, have you got most of the magazine done? I'm like, I'm still at work and I can't hear you. There's a jet taxiing past. And it just became, it was like, it took what little fun there was left out of the hobby for me. So I did sort of
squeeze it dry.
I did take a couple of years break really. And then it was, sort of on a subject that you touched on previous podcasts, sort of with mental health. I had my sister unfortunately passed away from cancer. Then a year later, my mum passed away. And then exactly a year after that, my dad passed away. So to be honest, it was the modelling to start with. I just threw myself back into the hobby just to build stuff, to take my mind off of everything that was going on. And from there, it's sort of, I've become, accepted what's happened and really started to embrace the hobby again, and really enjoy it to the point where it's become quite addictive again, and I'm in work thinking I can't wait to get home and paint or glue something, So.
No, that's the best part.
That passion element of it, that's really exciting to hear that in your voice, that, you've rediscovered your love of the hobby, and you kind of gotten away from the, I guess, I don't want to call it distractions because Mike might get mad at me, but you kind of more of the business end.
Yeah.
When you were talking about you couldn't hear the phone call because the jet taking off, I was just thinking, man, first world problems, man. First world problems.
Yeah. I just want to make sure this one gets airborne and doesn't fall out of the sky and make a big hole in the end of the runway, and then someone's going to be
safety first.
Right, yeah.
Safety first.
Can I call you back?
That's right, yeah. Right. What was that noise?
Can I put you on hold for a minute? Yeah.
All right. Well, my last question here. How did an RAF guy become such a damn good armor model?
I think because airplanes were my job, I had no interest in building model ones. It's
a fair statement.
Yeah, and I think if I'd weathered the models to the extent I'd seen and worked, the ones I'd worked on, people would never believe that they would look over weathered, So, but yeah, I think that for me, armor's always been my sort of passion as a child, really.
Mm-hmm. Big dirty machines.
Yeah.
I'd say you're making your way. You're getting there.
I'm trying.
So we've been friends on Facebook for over a year, about 2 years, something like that. And I come to know you through working for Spencer on MAI. And again, I noticed how an incredibly good armor modeler you are. And we've chatted back and forth quite a bit on Facebook. And then 2 weeks ago was the first time we actually met at Scale Model World, which was amazing. It was great to chat to you. Like, there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, couldn't chat to you about everything I wanted to, but it's a busy show in that. But for those of the listeners who aren't that familiar with you or your work, just tell us a bit about yourself, about you.
got into the hobby. My dad owned a hardware business, and they used to sell the sort of, I think Spencer may have mentioned it, like the Airfix kits that were in like a little blister pack. And my dad used to bring some of those home, and I would glue them together, use the small tins of Humbrol gloss that he used to sell, and then put every decal on vehicle or the aircraft deal across the whole of the upper surfaces. And it went from there. And then one of my best friend, a guy called Jeff, he was a modeler, and we got into wargaming. He always was the Germans. So we, from a wargaming stance, I was always losing because the vehicles were sort of crap in comparison to the, King Tigers. So I started to, because the kits weren't available, I would start scratch building or converting vehicles. And it just kind of went from there. Obviously, it's a cliche story. I then sort of got a bit older, got into sort of girls and dirt bikes. And, that's my big passion, as I've ridden dirt bikes all my life. Then just really bizarrely, I was in the Air Force, and a relative gave me a Tamiya King Tiger, Tamiya Jag Tiger. And, I was like, what am I going to do with this? I haven't built models for years. And my wife had said, look, just stick it together because I'm fed up of you moaning about the soaps being on TV. And it's just so coincidence. So I went to the local newsagents, and they had, I can't even remember what model magazine it was, but they had this Jag Tiger on the cover. So I ended up picking up the magazine, buying it, and was like, why does mine not look like this? Because I'd brush painted it. And I think the competitive spirit in me was like, right, I've got to get to this position and try to improve. Bought an airbrush, bought all the products. And then I got invited to a local model show by the local shop owner, and I entered 5 models. I got 4 first place and a 3rd place, and it was just like, oh my God, wow. I was so shocked. And, I think, again, like I say, the competitive spirit from racing, and, it just got to that where I sort of became a bit of a trophy hunter for a while, and then got approached by Spencer, actually, to say, would I be interested in doing an article for him? And it was like, right, okay, all of a sudden I had to sit there and think about how I'd actually made it, and what I'd actually done.
It became very real.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And it kind of just went from there, really. And then
we forget how old Spencer is too, by the way.
I know, that's right.
He's been around forever.
Yeah, I think he says on his Facebook page, it's like, I'm a professional modeler and I've been doing this for 30 years. And you think, God, yeah, that makes me quite old. Or makes us quite old, right?
Yeah, that's not what we want to hear.
I know. It's like we still go to the shows, and I just still feel like we're the young whippersnappers that have come in and upset in the sort of the established modelers. But we're not. We're the old ones now. That the young guys are going, when are these old fossils going to move on? Yeah.
Right. Pretty much.
Yeah, like Ivan's probably saying it.
Not at all. I mean, like Tamiya Jag Tiger, that's a great kit to start with.
It was, yeah. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, painted it grey, totally.
Wrong.
Yeah, use some of the Verlinden netting on the corners, all the cliches, and the Verlinden crew.
Oh, yeah.
The Verlinden crew that were probably closer to the 32nd scale, and then having gone to Bovingdon to see the real Jag Tiger, and then you compare the size of the figures compared with a real person stood next to the real vehicle, and you think, might be something wrong with these figures, So.
Well, I was going to ask, when did the hobby start becoming more of a passion for you, something you knew you loved and something you wanted to do for a long time?
Well, I think it's one of those, when you do it as a child, it's always there, and it's amazing how many people may have like a really long sort of break from it, but then they will come back at some point later on in their sort of lives when they've done all the kids and the family stuff, and they can, they've got disposable income and sort of more free time. But I think for me, it was a great release from obviously my job in the Air Force, and just a nice way to relax. And obviously when I was offered sort of positions to do sort of regular contributions with the magazines, it was quite nice to see getting this bit of extra money as well. So without sounding too mercenary, impetus to sort of carry on with it. So yeah, and then obviously I became a regular contributor for Spencer, and then Marcus asked me to do stuff for the Tamiya magazine, and that was around the time that I was leaving the Air Force. And then obviously as I left, the owner of ADH Publishing offered me a job starting a new magazine, which again was just, it was one thing doing articles, but to actually publish a magazine. And I think the first few issues, I probably cringed to look back at them with how how bad the sort of typos and the mistakes and stuff like that, because I really was in the deep end, but certainly did enjoy it.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that, because like I look back at my first few articles and I realise when everyone takes the piss on Facebook when they say, like, with aircraft articles, and they always take the mick of their construction starts with the cockpit.
Yeah, I
realise I've put that in 5 of my aircraft articles. But it's when you're doing it you don't realise. But it's like now it's like, yeah, that doesn't sound good. You try and improve it at each one though.
My typing was terrible. I was like the typical 2-fingered typing, and I would take a breath and then just bash away at the keys until I'd finished the paragraph, and then realised that there was no punctuation whatsoever. So it was like I would just sort of like, if there was like a punctuation shotgun, I would just fire it at the screen, and wherever the commas and full stops landed, it was like, that'll do.
Well, people forget there's no schooling for what we do. We can't learn. We have to learn this all as we go, and only the older people that do it before us give us any semblance of guidance, and even they don't share much information. And you think of other publications in the regular civilian world, and it's like these are all professional journalists or people that do this out of school. And here we are, we're handed this task of what we're doing. So you have to be good at the model side of it. And then you have to add the photography side where none of us are really truly trained. And then you have to write, the actual, hey, this is what I'm doing. And now you're asking gentlemen to explain to other guys, mostly, what it is that we actually do or we're doing. And there's a fumbling of all those steps until we kind of get comfortable. So yeah, it's definitely the growth period, the learning curve is steep.
Absolutely. The owner of ADH Publishing, Alan Harmon, when I first started, said to me, he said, it's easier to train a modeler to be an editor than it is an editor to become a modeler.
This is true.
So that was it was quite a valid point, really.
And it's all those little things I'm told at the minute we don't write in the first person. And it's like, that's just made things so much harder.
Yeah, and then it's like...
We have to write, like, the model was done in this...
I never listened to that advice at all. I've gotten yelled at for it, too. I'm like, no, you're missing the point.
And then is it in present tense or past tense? And as I'm mashing away at the keys, and I'll look back and think,
mixing them up.
Yeah, and I've mixed them all up, and then I'm like, I go back all through it again, And it's like, I enjoy the photography, I enjoy the modelling, but the writing, it's just like you sit there and you almost just sort of don't want to look at the laptop because you think, I really don't want to do this bit, but it's the bit that completes the article, and it's pretty much one of the most important things. So that's why I like, if I've got to do an article now, I like the ones that are all photo based and you just have expanded captions. I much prefer that than 5,000 words with part A12 goes to part B16. No one cares, no one wants to read that, and unless you've got the model in front of you, it's pointless, I always think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk to you about Telford.
Yes.
Really, I just want to get your thoughts on IPMS events in general and what you thought of this year's Scale Model World.
I was pleasantly surprised. I've been so many sort of harbingers of doom saying it was going to be a complete failure, and it's only going to be 2 halls. But I think there was something like 80 club stands and 120 traders or something, I believe, or the other way around, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was to the way around.
Other way around, yeah.
Still good.
And there was an awful lot of people seemed to come through the doors on both days. Really good atmosphere. I think everybody that was there was just so happy to be at that event because they missed it so much, and it was just a really sort of positive vibe, I felt. And a lot of the traders that I spoke to just said they all had a really good day, and it had been a profitable event for a lot of them. I think there was some, certainly I'd say, slightly contentious sort of judging in the competition. There was some stuff that you go, yeah, totally agree with that, and then there was others and you were sort of like, oh wow, sort of wouldn't have been my choice, but
yeah, I was really surprised I didn't win gold. Yeah, I agree.
But your ambulance, was absolutely fantastic, and it was just, I thought that had been, definitely was one that had been missed over, and I'd heard rumours that there wasn't enough judges for some of the classes, and they'd sort of seconded people from aircraft classes, and they just looked and sort of gone, it's a green box, don't know what it is, sort of, it looks like it's been painted, yeah, that'll do, so, but probably a little bit simplistic. But I think it's the one thing that the IPMS show seems to be missing. It's the largest model show in the world, but it doesn't have the kudos of, say, the European shows like Mossen, SMC, where they've taken over from, say, like Euromilitaire, where you get the world's elite modelers will, fly halfway across the world with a plywood box on their lap with the model that they're going to enter. And I think it's because it's judged by people that they deem their peers. So, if whatever award you've got, that that's what you deserved, because you've had people that are held in high esteem that have done the judging, where at least with Euro, if you were invited to judge, you had to bring some of your own models. If you weren't obviously entering the competition, they had a cabinet there, a display case, where you had to put your own models there. So the members of the public that came through could see the standard of the judges' modelling, so that at least they knew, the judges knew what they were talking about when they were, awarding, prizes for everybody, for the competitors.
I think that's understandable that somebody that is willing to invest so much into their model and then get on an airplane and risk the safety of the model to go to that event, that they would want an implied relationship where they're going to get the same level of investment in the feedback that they get back. They're going to get good quality, feedback, like you said, from their peers or people that they look up to.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, when you don't know the standard of their modelling, and you can almost feel a little bit insulted where you've not been awarded anything, and sort of if they've got like a club stand and, it's like, oh, wow, thanks. They've picked you up on some tiny little details and their stuff's sort of not at all comparable, so I think if that shows to have the sort of kudos, it's got the scale, obviously, that goes without saying, but to have that kudos, they need to really revamp the sort of judging criteria and the people, even if you get some of the sort of perceived names in to do the judging, and that then, if people go, oh, wow, these guys are doing the judging, then, they feel like it's something they want to participate in.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far off of the path here, John, but just, I mean, since
judging can do that,
yeah, since we've gotten into that, I just, you've talked about the sort of the qualifications of the judges, which is a very important element. But does the IPMS judging format, do you think that factors into this at all, where you're competing against other models in your category, similar or dissimilar, versus competing against yourself? So it's sort of, looked at it that way. Do you feel that that's a factor?
I do. I know when it's done in the States, when I was working for MMIR, we went to the IPMS Nationals in Columbus, Ohio, and it seemed to be done very differently than it is in the UK. And it didn't seem such a rigid formula over here. So, yeah, there needs to be sort of some real standardization with it. But it is a difficult one. It's like, should they be judged against the other models that are there, or to a sort of standard that's been sort of predetermined?
Great debate.
Yeah, I know, yeah, that's right. But I think really they should be judged on maybe the other models that are in in their class in the competition. Which one is the one that stands out? And so it's instead of just a box ticking exercise, if you can sort of put the models, I think they do that in Euro, Mike, if I'm correct, that you'll whittle out the sort of chaff from the wheat, and then what you're left with, you then basically line those models up, and you'll start looking at each one. And then
your first pass as a judge, a competent judge, can eliminate most of the table in terms of who's really at the percolation of that table, or that whatever section of the table they're judging, and that's not hard to do. I've never found that from competent model builders who are performing as judges. To do that part of it is easy, because I think what I hear all the time is it's either or. And I think really what it is there's a blending of the two styles where you filter as humans, judges, the pass through. And then you've got, okay, these 5 are what we really need to focus on, which I think is how Euro kind of does it, where they pull the 4 or 5 up, or whoever it is. Okay, now they go to a standard now, but there might be 3 gold medals here. But it's the 5 of those models on the table that really sing, and not that the others are terrible. It's just they're not in that they're not in that level.
Right,
so a human judge that's competent can easily filter that through. Most of us can.
Yeah, no, I think
truth be told,
it's so much easier when you've got models side by side, because you can do direct comparisons, rather than sort of
same lighting, same viewpoint, same everything. You can go through pretty quick.
Definitely.
I mean, just referring to one more thing about the judges. There was a model in my category, and I believe it was another ambulance. Was it Dan Sankey's?
It was Dan Sankey. Yeah, I have to say he's from my own model club. So
yeah, I think that was robbed.
Yeah,
because that was outstanding. It was on a circle base. It was a small vignette ambulance. It was very busy. It was beautiful. Like I said, instantly of everything in that category that stood out, and it got nothing. Again, it's just my thought on it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
There's always those judging conversations, every year, there's one show. I mean, like we haven't seemed to have had one for a while. So John and I, we've probably been involved in a number of judging conversations on the internet over, for X show at X point in time and what happened and what did. It's a very common thread in our hobby.
I know. It was like the very first time I was invited to judge at Euromilitaire, and I'd been paired off with another newbie judge. It was his first show. I think it was a Spanish guy, and he picked up a T-34 that was on a little wooden base and angled it at about 45 degrees to look at the side of it, and it promptly slid right off the base and smashed to pieces. And it was sort of one of those note to self, don't do that. And it was, where you sort of, I did that sort of, instantly took a step away from him and sort of did that like point with my eyes as if to say, it's not me.
Yeah, I hate touching other guys' models and stuff like that. Here, take a look, like when they hold it up and I'm like, no, I'm okay. Because I just know it's going to be the one moment that I fumble and, that's the most stressful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I have this big fear, and I feel it even when I'm at home, that when I'm at a model show and I've got my phone out to take pictures, I'm going to drop my phone on the model.
All right, yeah.
I've always got that horrible impending.
Well, the day with the DSLRs when you're hovering,
and
trying to take pictures for the magazine, or you're like, oh yeah, look at the, and you got this huge camera.
Yeah, and
I like the phones. I'm like, wow, that's nice.
Yeah, the camera straps swinging around, and then they've got the rucksack on, and it's a sort of recipe for disaster.
Good times. Good times.
Ivan, you were handed a model that you were afraid to hold, weren't you?
Yeah. Peter Rusher, Mind the Gap, like one of my favourite pieces I've ever seen. He literally picked it up, he said, hold that. And I had my hands flat because I thought it was a solid base, and it wasn't. It's hollow. So I nearly put my hands through the scene. I was terrified. But yeah, you got me to hold it, and I was just like, I'm shaking the entire time. I'm going to drop this. Because it's not light either. There's a lot on it. It's heavy. But yeah, to be able to hold that was awesome.
Well, it was the thing with Pete, because he put the model on our club stand, which was really good. And again, I've known Pete for years when I was based at an RAF station not far from his hometown. So, we became friends from going to the same model club. Pete had one of these really useful plastic boxes that he keeps the model in. But instead of using the handle supplied with the box, he just used a piece of duct tape doubled over to act as like a handle. And I think one of the handles broke up on the weekend. And I think he did have to repair that diorama. You just think.
I've seen the picture of him on his knees gluing some bits.
Yeah, all that work, and then it's sort of, hey, get a proper box for it,
Well, some guys will ship their stuff overseas too for the show.
Yeah.
There's that whole conversation.
That is putting a lot of
full-blown dioramas and the whole thing. And I'm like, you guys are crazy.
I just couldn't do it. I think from the time in the military and working for civil airlines, the thought of walking in to go through the X-ray machine and you've got a plastic model and they want to see what's inside, and you've got to open this box up in front of everybody, and you've got, it's my toy tank, and I just I'm like, no, it's okay. I'll drive. It's 1,000 miles. Don't care. I'll drive.
That's my big fear for next year.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, it depends. You're going to have to take a few, aren't you, for other people?
Yeah, I'm taking quite a lot. I've got 4 of my own builds. I've offered to take yours, and I think there's someone else who wants me to take theirs as well.
Oh, good Lord.
That's putting a lot of trust in me, that. Speaking of breaking models, I remember we were outside Scale Model World, weren't we? And there was a guy with that really wobbly trolley, and we could call it before it even happened. And because it was wobbling so much, the securing elastic band on the trolley went, and 2-3 crates of models all built smashed to the floor. I could feel that in my chest when he dropped. Oh, and we just looked at each other like, I called it.
Oh, but that's the thing. They go to all this effort to build these models. Time, money, effort goes into it, and then just something as simple as just making sure that it's secured to the trolley before you wheel it across like a load of sort of rough tarmac. So.
Yeah, because Telford's in the city, right? It's in the middle of the city or whatever.
Yeah, Telford, just on sort of edge of their shopping precinct.
Right.
But I guess that guy probably spent the weekend gluing most of those back together.
I'd have just thrown them in the car and gone home.
Yes. Or that. I was going to say they just put them away as is. You're like, I'll get to that later. Yeah.
Speaking of model shows as well, so we know the standard of like Scale Model Challenge and the European shows that aren't IPMS run tend to be known as the shows, the best shows. Do you ever see us getting anything like that over in the UK?
Well, we had it with Euromilitaire. You know, that was basically the Olympics for figure and vehicle modelling. So there's no reason why it can't happen again. You know, it just really depends who's going to sort of step up.
Somebody's got to take that mantle up and do it. Yeah. There's no other really way to answer that. Same for the U.S. You know, I think we've talked about that for U.S. as well as, you know, the IPMS conversation. Now, the funny part is Mosen in Hungary is an IPMS show. It is. They run the IPMS Hungarian standards, but most people forget that part. But they do a pretty good job, but they've had their issues too. But I think, you know, probably Robert's SMC show is the standard now, and obviously they're holding World Model Expo, I think in June or July in 2022 if it goes off. I think what it comes down to is somebody's just, or a group of people have to just kind of basically do it.
Yeah.
And those guys that ran Euro, and I know we've lost a few, you know, they've passed from either age or cancer or something, so it dispersed from that part of it as well, and nobody's really stepped in that because the location's nice, but as far as, you know, doing a show, it's the same for the U.S. I think about it every now and then. I'm like, I don't have the gumption, you know. It's a lot of work, and you really need that enthusiasm. You need the core to have the passion, the drive. You know, I think some of the people that, you know, like the John Bonamis of the world that are 20 years younger, that can push this through, and they have the enthusiasm. And Spud and I are probably worn and tattered, and you know, we don't care. We earned our stripes, and it's kind of like we're hoping a new generation of Martins will come through and really, you know, maybe put something together with some other people, and ultimately something pops up. And I think it will. I'm you know, kind of how it's going to be. Somebody's got to do it, and it can't be an IPMS group. No, it's just going to have to be, you know, something independent.
Yeah. Speaking of your former years of being the editor of MMI, just tell us about like the favorite parts of that and what you enjoyed about it and your experiences in doing that role.
Was there any? I'm kidding.
I learned a lot, that was for sure. Yeah, it was really good. Made an awful lot of friends, contacts, people from in the hobby and in the industry. It was quite full on, to be honest. You know, you'd have the 10 days to edit the entire magazine, and then you'd go in and sit with the graphic designer to then spend the next 2 weeks getting the magazine laid out, and then straight on to the next one. And I think with a monthly publication, you know, and you're chief cook and bottle washer, you know.
And there's only a couple of you. Yeah, there's only like you, and there's only 2 or 3 people involved.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not like there's 20 or 30 involved.
No, you've got no sort of like staff editors. You've got no sort of, you know, the contributors are all just guys from outside, you know, that are doing the articles. You'd have one guy from the advertising department. That could be a bit frustrating, that you sort of say to a contributor, right, this is 6 pages, this is a fantastic article, and then all of a sudden advertising coming and go, oh, we need that page as an advert, so we'll make it 5 pages or 4 pages, and you know, you sort of go, the thing is, people are buying the magazine for the articles, not the adverts. But you can't say that because the advertisers like to think that
are paying,
you know. So from the fun side of it, I think it was more the fact that there's so much goes on in the background that you don't realise, you know, when you've done a model, someone's used certain products, and then of course you've got the advertising people have got an advert in, and they've gone, no, you can't use those products, or we don't like our advert next to that model because you've used someone else's product. So all this stuff in the background, and you just don't realise, you know, and people when they pick the magazine up don't realise how much sort of that can be quite bitchy, you know, that's going on. It was, I think, in the 3 years that I worked for Model Military, I only had 1 week off. And when I came back from that 1 week off, I had 500 emails waiting for me, and they're not spam. They're people saying that my dog's just eating my magazine. What are you going to do about it? And of course, you can't reply, shoot it.
Right.
So, you know, as much as my military sarcastic humor was like, oh God, you've got to say this, like, you know, and then it was like, think of your job. Yeah. And to be honest, then when I was offered the job with MMIR in Florida, and, you know, just without sounding too sort of mercenary again, to use that phrase, it was sort of double the pay and half the amount of magazines. And I had a couple of guys doing a lot of the features, you know, so it was pretty much a no-brainer. And I got to work and live in Florida, you know, so that was quite a draw.
There were some perks. There was a couple
yeah,
perks.
that's right, yeah.
And we had access to, or, you know, because I think I was working in Los Angeles, you were in Florida, we're on the same project, and we had access to a lot of good stuff.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
we did have access to all the good kits and products and anything we wanted or needed. That part of it was the enjoyable part.
Definitely.
You know, there was that part to it.
Yeah, and
For sure.
getting to travel around the States was fantastic, you know, so obviously I'd been there a few times in the Air Force, but it was so, you know, it's nice to go there and actually sort of be able to enjoy it and not just sort of pass through. So,
Mike, you want to ask him some questions?
Sure,
I
yeah.
don't know if you want to get into influences and styles or whatever.
I've got. Let's see here. Let's discuss.
Don't throw him softballs, man. Come on, Mike.
Well, let's start off. I'm looking at this here, and I think knowing you the way what we talked about to kind of open up things is let's talk about kind of your finishing style. You know, let's do it from a point of view of, because it's been kind of the topic of this of what we're talking about, John, is really that pressure of what a magazine publication editor, contributor, et cetera, does, and then now. How has this affected to where, like, your finishing style and where you want to go with what you're doing now, assuming you're in a transitional period a little bit,
absolutely.
if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the use of oil paints. I'm using a lot more oil paints than I would have previously, just purely because I've got the luxury of allowing them to dry, where when you're doing an article, you know, as much as you'd like to do them, you've got to find an alternative product that does a similar role, but you know is going to dry really, really quickly, you know, and I think that's the one main thing for me is just using oils a lot more.
Did you, moving from, in that vein too, was there anything that you really did differently? And I personally never have made this jump in size, you know, like say from your like Achilles or even the Centurions and stuff like that to the 16 scale Stewart. Was there really any changes that you physically had to do, or is it just kind of expanding your normal stuff?
Yeah, I actually...
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Like just moving that jump and scale.
Yeah, no, it was a real block, actually. I sort of cracked on with the building, got that all done fairly quickly. It's really nice, that classy hobby kit, by the way. I got to the point where I've started to use a lot of the Mr. Hobby colours, the lacquer paints, and, you know, that was a recommendation from Spence. Spence Pollard said, you know, to use them.
With all the aircraft stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and I've used them on so many vehicles now. Got the base colours on. And I do like this sort of, I like the modulation to an extent, but not so it looks like a 3D CAD image. Mm-hmm. So I sort of never go as far as you sort of, you know, you see a lot of the models done with that sort of technique. And then I just got the running gear weathered and then just had an absolute mental block and just didn't know where to go with it. And I think it became a shelf queen for about 6 months. And it was a combination of, you know, good old Facebook. There was an M5 Stewart page, and there was an Australian guy called Dan Warecraft, I think his surname. And he was building.
Dan Workstat.
Sorry, yeah. And we started sort of private messaging, and he sent me a photo, and it was like an epiphany. He just sort of done this oil paint on the edges to sort of not simulate chipping, but it was more like just greasy, grimy hand marks that you'd get around the edges of hatches. And it was that's where I need to go. That and the combination of, I thought I'd try one of those like marbling stencils. I sort of had a go with that. And again, Spence, bless him, sort of said, you know, you've got to keep the thing moving. Then that sort of marbling effect gave me the effect I was after. And I think for me was the rear stowage bin was like my sort of test piece. And I sort of sprayed that up and I was like, I think this is, you know, I've got it, eureka. And then I sort of felt brave enough to carry on with the rest of the model then. And, you know, and then all of a sudden you get into that role. And then it was almost like I got back on track to the techniques that I'm familiar with. And once I was back at that point, then kind of it was sort of fairly plain sailing.
Yeah, well, you sent me some photos and it wasn't shit. So I was like, well, John, I think you're onto something. Yeah. Like, I think you're doing some good stuff, mate. So keep it going. And sure enough, it was like, I think what Scott and I were saying is you sent us some pictures and I'm like, wait a minute. that's not a model. Like, what is that? And he's like, no, it's the 16 scale, I'm like, wow, so yeah.
Yeah, it was things like, I'd sort of painted the tools first and painted like jerry cans. And I was actually using those really as a sort of to practice to see if I was going in the right direction. So those were the first things I posted up the photos of, were just the sort of accessories. And it was almost like I was like afraid to do the main vehicle. So I was avoiding it and doing everything other than the actual vehicle itself. Yeah. But I must admit, I've really enjoyed it. Glad I finished it. As I was saying to Ivan, ironically, the first kit I built, the Jag Tiger, I'd love to do the 16th scale Jag Tiger. And then I think really the size of it, now seeing what the Stuart's like, I think actually, so I might give that a miss, because the Stuart was actually slightly overwhelming because, like each section, like just the hatch is the same size as a sort of turret on some, smaller 35th scale vehicles. So to just put the amount of effort into just this one hatch, and then you take a step back and you look at how much of the rest of the vehicle's still to be done. So I ended up sort of, as like Michael do, is just do a small section at a time. And the great thing now with so many of the products that are available, it's not a case of having to constantly mix and you think, have I got the ratio right? So there could be tonal differences. You can kind of, it's like shake and bake. It's already there available. So I knew I could go back in a week or two and get this exactly the same results because I was using the same products. And, and it just made it sort of more bite-sized for me.
Yeah, I think even though the Stuart's not as big as other subjects, the fact that it's olive drab, and that's always a challenge to kind of bring some depth and some life to an all over olive drab subject. Your approach, like with, doing that rear stowage bin all by itself, and then, almost doing that like a little kit. Yeah. Your approach to the weathering seemed to be almost like when you build and you're doing, okay, I'm going to build this section and the turret and whatever. And it turned out really magnificent.
Thank you. It was a bit, because I'd weathered all the running gear, got the tracks on. So I think there's some progress shots where the bottom half is completely finished, weathered, and then the top half has got nothing. And that was part of the problem, because the more I went on with the sort of oil paint rendering and other effects and the rust and chipping, I didn't want to make it too dirty to then hide all those effects, but I still wanted it to look sort of like realistic and not sort of like it's that fine line between it being artistic and authentic. And that was the sort of the juggle I had to try and get the correct balance with that, because if I'd have just daubed it in all the weathering effects like muds and dust, then I felt like I would have just lost everything that I was so pleased that had come out so well.
Have you seen the 1/16 scale looks kit? That's one I'd love to see you take a stab at.
I do like. This is such a cool looking vehicle. It's almost like a little sports tank. That one is.
Yeah,
that's like cool. I have put my name down for the 1/16 scale Stug, and then got Dave Parker from AFE Modeler invited me onto the Facebook page, and it was like, oh wow, these guys are quite serious here, and they were. I was just like, it's like I wanted to do the Homer Simpson thing where I just disappeared back through the bush, so it was like, I'm out of my league.
Yeah. The intimidation factor is real.
Yeah.
I do love your attention to detail, like looking at all your builds at the table on at Scale Model World, and we were talking about like the spent ammunition that you had on one of your tanks, and it wouldn't be shiny because obviously spent ammunition dulls. It's those little details. It's like because a lot of people would leave them shiny so people deliberately can see them, but it's those little refinements that you do. It's like that's a Murphy model.
A lot of that just stems from my military career. With sort of seeing this stuff in use every day, and it's like when people go around when they sort of build dioramas and they're forever looking at mosses, like you see Martin Kovac, where he'll spot something and incorporate it into one of his buildings. And we're constantly sort of gathering mental information on projects. And, I just was very fortunate that I was around all of this, all the war-y stuff. So, I could get to see it firsthand. It gives you those sort of little inside sort of tidbits like,
If I ever come to build a Hercules, at least now I know I need to put the coffee stain on the side of the aircraft.
Yeah, all the way down along the bottom of the fuselage, the coffee stain for wherever he would tip the coffee into the sink and it just dumped straight to atmosphere.
That's awesome. Are you doing anything for the Plastic Posse M3, M4 group build?
I am, yes.
Are you make?
Yeah, I've kind of not really made a start yet, but I intend to do it. It's just a really cool photo. I found it.
You know, you got like 10 days, right? Like it's due in a week. Okay. Just making sure.
It's like, I'll focus then. It's self-induced pressure. Yeah, I think Ivan was doing an M10, but I'd seen one that I really liked. It was the late turret. So it's probably going to be quite expensive because I've got to buy the Tamiya M10, the US mid-production one, to steal the gun and the hull, and then use the Achilles for the late style turret, but put the 3-inch gun on it, then put the armoured roof and a Cullen hedgerow device, and I think it's got sandbag armour on the front, so it is quite a cool looking vehicle. It's sort of like, you know, the ultimate sort of M10 really, you know, with sort of the improvements and sort of field mod. So that's the one I'm intending to do. It's just I'm still gathering parts for it at the moment.
If it comes out anything like your Achilles did, it's going to be fantastic.
Thank you.
Do you actually build anything besides armor, or are you just a tank guy?
No, I do the odd aircraft. Yeah.
What else do you do?
I do the odd aircraft. Just for myself. You know, just sort of. It's generally colour schemes, aircraft, the schemes that will attract me, you know, and if I happen to sort of like the aircraft, I recently finished the Tamiya 48 scale Dornier 335 and then a really old Italeri B-58 Hustler, but in the Southeast Asia bomber scheme with the black undersides. And so, you know, and it was just from a one black and white line drawing in a book. And it was just like, sometimes that's just all you need is that, like, oh, I really like the look of that. And I've got a few other aircraft that by the time I finish the cockpit, I've burnt out, you know. So, you know, and I think it's that where you know, I get so engrossed in it and I'm painting all the dials and gauges and absolutely loving it. And then you put the 2 ounces of the fuselage together, which then by the time I've finished sanding, you know, and I've gone, oh, no, I'm bored with this now. And then I sort of look across and go, oh, tank, shiny. And then I want to start building that instead. Like,
Squirrel. I feel you on that one, because there is a process to armor modeling that it's unique in the sense of how we can attack it as a whole. You know, or unless you're really doing an interior based project, you know, if it's mostly exterior, that kind of enjoyment of just kind of boom, 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 and you can kind of flow through it. And aircraft just mostly doesn't have that flow. No. And it's a different flow, different works, you know, mental flow and processing. And, you know, I look at like Brett Green's stuff when he does things quickly, and I'm like, okay, I don't know how you did that in 2 days, but I mean, I understand that you're under the gun, but at the same time, like, that's that doesn't happen in my world. So yeah, there is something to when you look at the tanks.
Definitely, you know, you think you can actually get quite a lot of the structure done very quickly. You know, you think top and bottom of the hull, 2 halves of the turret together, and you've pretty much got the essence of the vehicle then, and it's just a case of clagging on all the sort of smaller fittings. But within a fairly short space of time, you've got something that resembles a tank where, you know, especially with aircraft, if you're doing all of the cockpit detailing and you spend an inordinate amount of time on that, then you get the halves of the fuselage together, and then you've just got like a long thin thing, you know, and you can't put the wings on at that point because you're sanding all the fuselage seams. You know, for the same amount of time, you don't seem to progress anywhere near as quickly as you would do, you know, on a fairly basic, you know, tank.
Aircraft modelers will ask me, how can you do road wheels? And I'm just like, fuselage seams, rescribing, landing gear alignment,
wing joints.
Yeah, wing joints. Yeah, I'll take my road wheels any day. Thank you very much.
And then I've done things where I picked up one of these like Rosie the Riveter wheels years ago, and I just feel that I have to use it on you know, any appropriate aircraft. I did a CH-53 Sea Stallion, and it completely, you know, all of it needed sort of riveting, and I did get slightly carried away with it. And then I was sort of so jealous of people that can get these straight lines, and then I look at it and I'm thinking, wow, you know, and it's just, you've got this sort of wonky line all along the fuselage, and then you've had to try and rub all that down again, and I'm just thinking, why did I even start this? Like, it's just sort of like, how do these people do this? Like, you know?
Right.
that staring back up at the sky as you fall down into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then,
absolutely.
I'll add weld seams to something, and then you look and you think, what I've started here. But for some reason, I find that quite therapeutic, and I'll quite happily do weld seams. But then if I've got to do the equivalent with aircraft and just run a riveting wheel along it, and you've gone over the join and gone off at an angle, and and just it's strange how you can have the patience for one but not the other.
Well, you could just weld the aircraft.
There you go. That's an idea. Yeah.
That might get frowned upon, but
yeah, we're supposed to
just do it to take the piss out of people. I love it. Pushing buttons, right? Yeah. Do you have besides yours truly? Because I know we're friends, but who are your other influences, or do you have any like exterior influences for your work at all? Like, are there other guys or newer guys maybe from new times versus old times that really influence you?
Yeah, obviously, Martin Kovac's been absolutely brilliant, and I have to name drop here. I published his first article in my magazine, and it was I think it was like a BT7 or something like that he'd done, and it was all like bare metal and rust effects, and it was just even straight away, then you're like, it's that I love him, I hate him, he's brilliant. I mean, someone break his fingers, Been a real sort of fan since, and obviously Mike's stuff with his books and techniques, he's always sort of been pushing.
I think you actually published my first article inside ADH of all the titles. I think the Churchill in your first go through with MMI was my first, because I don't think I published more with you and Brett than I did with Marcus.
Did we ever pay you?
For sure.
No.
Yeah, I got paid eventually. I knew who to talk to get paid, though. That was the one trick I had, was I actually knew who to email to say, hey, by the way, how do I do this? So she would handle that, and I got lucky in that regard.
The guys from my own model club, Kev Smith, obviously Darren, all exceptional models. Dan Sankey, who obviously Ivan knows, who's done the ambulance. Dan's stuff from when he first came to the club, it's just so innovative, very clever, and I think we all just sort of, like I was saying earlier, we all just sort of pinch ideas from each other, and we're also very sort of, no one keeps a secret. If you've discovered something by accident, I've always been more than willing to sort of say, oh, this is how I did it, and I think it's that thing from the professional side of being in, the magazine business, that if one person goes away and it's helped them improve their model, that means they go and buy another model, and then all the products that go with it. And in a small way, it kind of keeps the hobby in the industry alive, So this sort of being like all closely guarded secrets, I just don't get that, And I think I started to get more pleasure from just going to the shows and just putting models on display rather than being in the competition, because people would come over and, if they ask how you did something, more than happy to sort of tell them what I'd discovered, and it's just a really nice feeling that someone goes, thanks very much, never knew that, and off they go, and then even greater if you see them later on and they go, well, I've tried that, it worked perfectly, and they, so it's helped in some small way for them to improve.
Well, and that collaboration that you're talking about is, I think, in the biggest way possible, the reason why this hobby's seen such a resurgence, because people can actually now, like you were mentioning earlier, they can actually watch Mike do what he's doing in his books. Now, Mike's way better than your average article writer at explaining the hows and whys and kind of his theories. But for some of us that are a little slow, because, I've read his books 1,000 times. Actually watching him do it, for me, is kind of a better way to learn.
Yeah.
And so watching Martin just take a piece of damn styrofoam and create an unbelievable building with a 300-year history in it, or watching Mike do his OPR on the fender of a Stug, has really made a lot of people go, wow, and they want to learn, and they want to be taught. And that's what's fueling this hobby. I mean, manufacturers can't keep their products on the shelves.
No, and I think that the biggest difference is watching someone actually do it on a video. You can see the pressure that they use, the speed that the brush is crossing the surface, for instance, how much thinners or white spirits or whatever medium's being used to dampen a surface down. And, you know, like you say, it's something you just can't do in a magazine with just a set number of photos. You'll never explain it to that extent. And then obviously, you know, say with like Mike's, where, you know, people can message in and he'll stop and read them and then go back over a technique is so useful. So it's, in a way, it's like people feel like they're getting a 1-to-1 tuition, you know.
It's like with pigments. I hate pigments. And then one video from Mike, I was like, I love pigments.
Yeah, I was so hesitant. I know Scott's been involved in this conversation for a while, but I was resistant to joining the YouTube. You know, obviously I'm friends with Martin and knowing what he was doing and everything, and just focus on the books and this, that, and the next thing. But yeah, it was really a blessing from both sides, because I think, like what John just mentioned, was for me to be able to demonstrate or a video content guy to show the quantity of liquids on the brush, which is 95% of everything you do with weathering. You know, it's a thin chemical, it's on a brush, and then you put it on the model. That's like it, everybody. And like how, but it's always those little variables, and then to stop and say, okay, this is exactly what the brush and then hold it up to the camera and go, this is what you're looking for. And I spend more time talking about that than I do almost anything else now. Is really fine tuning that.
You know, I remember it's the bit where you roll the brush on the sort of kitchen roll, you know, to
pull it back and spin it.
And
it keeps the tip sharp. Like, all the simple things.
Yeah, that's right. And again, you can never explain that in, you know, just a photograph in a magazine article. One, you haven't got the space to write all of that. And two, you know, it would be quite a boring photograph just having a picture of the brush on a piece of tissue paper with like a little sort of like arrow drawn on it saying rotation direction, you know, sort of, but just when you actually see it.
It's the only choice you have.
Yeah, that's it.
And then, okay, camera, do your thing. Yeah. To try to take that photo.
Well, it's like when I started with MMIR and they were still had quite a lot of the photos were in black and white. And it was like, you know, there you are talking about using the correct shade of olive drab, and it's a black and white photo. And you just go, okay, then.
I remember those conversations well. Can we just print in all color? Because it makes it a lot easier.
The funniest thing, I think, with MMIR when I first took over, and the section that would cover all the new releases, the photos weren't necessarily on the same page that the written information was. So you had to kind of keep going backwards and forwards, and it was quite time consuming. So I decided to sort of block it out that each manufacturer would have a slightly different background sort of shade. So, you know, it sort of, you could see where each manufacturer was. And the photos were all relevant on the page. And a guy wrote in from some jail in America and said, I really like what you've done. But he said, what I don't like is you've made the magazine too quick for me to read now, and I've got lots of time on my hands. And he said he used to.
Of course, it would be the one guy.
He said he enjoyed spending all that, like, hunt the photo and hunt the caption to go with it. Like, you know,
where's Waldo? Yeah. That's awesome. Oh, man. So I told you, Spud has the best stories. It's just like, come on. You can't make this up. So explain to me, guys, and John, this magnum opus build.
Yeah, so that's where we ask our guests, like, what's your magnum opus? If you could make your
gotcha.
ultimate build.
Okay, yeah, okay. Let's chat about that for a second, because I'm sure John's got a few.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, the 16th scale Yag Tiger would be one of them, I think. That would be sort of like the sort of ultimate.
That's got to be, 3 times the physical size of the Stuart?
I think that right? I think the superstructure, you know, the sort of casemate bit. That's the Stuart is is that size. Yeah, just so, and then
it's the Titanic underneath.
It is.
To therefore recreate.
Yeah. So this. I think really it's I do like Israeli stuff, and I do like my sort of Vietnam armor. So really sort of I think probably to do like Merkava 1 through to Merkava 4, you know, that sort of thing would be something I'd really like to do.
Lots of good kits for those.
Yeah, it's just you've got ball and chains to do, and I did those once, the legend sets.
Nobody likes a ball machine.
12 straight hours of building a ball and chain, so it was like, note to self, never do again, like, you know. So. I tend to sort of, you know, I don't have a particular. I know, like the guys, some from my old model club. One of my friends, I have to name check him, Andy Willis. Always says to me, "All I ever do is paint green tanks," and it's sorry, like, you know, I just happen to like the vehicles, and unfortunately, they're all painted green, like, you know. So yeah, I don't have a particular sort of genre. I'll just, if it's a cool color scheme or a set of markings, that can be enough for me to think, that's what I want to sort of do next. But
well, that's why we always got on well, because we liked similar ways like that. Well, I love how that looked in that color scheme. I'm like, I'm just going to make that subject. Like, I'm not just like a Panzer 3-4 guy, kind of an eye guy, or a Sherman guy. Like, no, I like John. I oftentimes, even though he's done more of kind of what you said, the green tanks, but it's just because probably just the way that all happened with either kit release and or we're doing that or whatever it was, or a Sherman book for who, and it's like all of those things. But yeah, I think that's one of the reasons we always chatted about stuff so much, was that we really enjoyed the variety that you can get from various subject matter.
Yeah, because there's an awful lot of people, they'll just build German armor of a particular period or American, so I'll just say, it's sort of when I look at, when guys say, all I ever do is build green stuff, and then I'll if I'm at like Ivan would have seen it at Telford, there was hopefully quite a bit of a varied selection.
Oh yeah.
What about like Maschinen Krieger or Gundam? Or would you consider doing one of those?
No, not at all. As soon as Mike starts painting those on his video, I just skip straight past it.
I'm sure most. No. Yeah.
No, seriously, it's like Lincoln Wright. His stuff, absolutely sort of incredible. And it's one of those, because the same as Mike, we both like the sort of where you do extreme weathering, and it's just such a great canvas to be able to sort of practice. And there probably is, if you get sort of, if I was to look deeply into it, there's probably do's and don'ts with it. But where I just sort of go, I really like that, I'm going to paint it in some funky style, and I'm going to go to town with the weathering. Yeah, so there's certainly are things I would sort of quite like to do, but I think because my modelling are sort of slowed down, and I don't have a large kit stash, and I just I'd break it out into a sweat thinking I'm never going to get to finish these without adding to that list, so I try and stay quite focused.
So true. Yeah, so true.
Well, I want to talk about some of your builds, but I'm going to start with you. So, you build a lot of great kits. What are maybe one or two of your favorites, the ones that you're the most happy with?
Obviously, the Stuart was, really pleased with that, because I think that definitely sort of moved me on, and I tried some new techniques, learnt an awful lot from that one. I did a Israeli Centurion, the Shot Cal. That's another one that I think I did quite a lot of oil paint on that one, because that one wasn't built for anybody in particular. It just for myself, it wasn't for an article. And I did started to do sort of shading and fading with oils. And that was a favourite of mine. Not that it's really been sort of publicised anywhere, but just the M10 Achilles. And that was a really quick build, the one that was in the Tamiya magazine. And also I've done two Sheridans. One's to be published for the Abrams squad, which hasn't been published yet. And then the first one was for the AFE modeler copy from ADH Publishing, or Doolittle. They do, I can't think of the name of the title now.
The Model Military Illustrated?
That's the one, yeah. So I had Vietnam Sheridan on there, which
or Military Modeler Illustrated. I forget the order.
Yeah, it's really embarrassing when I used to work for him.
I still do it. I still always, is it Model Military? Is it Military? Wow, I'm like, I can't.
Military Illustrated.
It's a Tamiya magazine.
I've still got left and right written on the bottom of my shoes. So
no, I'm with you. Totally with you.
Only reason I remember is because I'm on the front cover in January.
Excellent. Yeah, there's been, I think whatever model I'm working on is my favourite until it's finished, and then it's kind of done, dusted. And I think we've all probably suffered from it. When you're working on something for a while, you start to, all you see is the bits you wish you'd improved on, or you're not 100% happy with. And by the time it's finished, you sort of like, I'm done with this one. And then you get it out of the box to take to a model show in a few months' time, and I often look at it and think, oh wow, I'm quite pleased with that. And it's almost like, who built that? I quite like that, And it's like, it's almost as if you've forgotten, and you look at it through a different set of eyes.
Yeah, for sure. I really like that Achilles build. I mean, it's hard to believe that, that was a rushed magazine build, but the way that you modified the fenders and then your stowage, and then, of course, the Mickey Mouse camouflage, it is kind of in the same vein as Mike's Churchill 3-inch gun carrier.
Yeah, that was, to be honest, that Mike's scheme on his vehicle really was the inspiration.
I don't think I've done a Mickey Mouse since. No, I did a Humber Scout Car Mickey Mouse. way back when. But yeah, it's
yeah. And I've always liked that scheme, and it was a combination of I was googling images, Achilles and Mickey Mouse schemes, and one came up as a color drawing from. Well, it was part of I think it was World of Tanks. So it was actually just, totally fictitious, but they'd done it in the Mickey Mouse scheme, and I was like, oh, I really like that. Didn't know if it was 100% genuine, and then thankfully found a really faded photo in a Polish book that showed an M10 with the Mickey Mouse scheme like you see on the AFV club kit of the Achilles. And I was like, right,
the box art.
I've got the green light now. I've seen a photo, so I could sort of do it. And I was so pleased that, I was really happy with the way it came out, and like I say, I'd almost committed to it without it being 100% convinced it was, a true scheme. But, that sort of one photo was enough to sort of...
Photo validation's like the best reward.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, see? Leave me alone. I can do it.
Yeah, because, and the thing is, you go to the shows, competitions, and there's always someone that goes, well, I've never seen one in that scheme. Thankfully,
there's always someone.
On my phone, I've got folders for sort of each model that I've been building, and obviously the reference photos. So you can just do that sort of just hang on 1 second, my good man, and then you scroll through and then go, there you go, But because you get it all the time, and obviously before the days of sort of like smartphones, you just had to go, no, honestly, I did see a photo, and they're like, yeah, of course, so.
Yeah, I've never really understood that. I mean, we all look at modeling different, but it's like you take a look at a lot of what Adam does, and Adam, if he wants to put some mattress bed spring armor on an IS-7, he's going to do it, and it's going to not only is it going to look great, it's going to look 100% legit, whether it was or not.
That's right.
And so you've got that part of the art, that's involved in it. It's not just doing the modifications or the paint job, but making it look like it was natural.
That's right. And that's the thing with like Adam's stuff. Again, it's like, I think that, he's one of sort of so many that are almost like subliminal influences, and you'll start to be doing a particular weathering process, and you start doing it and you're not sure why you're doing it. And then somewhere along the line, you'll think, yeah, or you'll see a picture and you go, yeah, that was my sort of influence. And like you say, with someone like Adam, they can do like a prototype vehicle or even a sort of what if vehicle, but they'll do it so well that you completely forget that it's a what if vehicle, and it just seems completely plausible. And it's a very, very sort of clever thing to be able to do.
Well, Mike, what's one of your favorite builds of John's?
I've personally a fan of Centurions, and John's always held that vehicle in high esteem, and his Centurion builds, including, I didn't see the IDF you mentioned, because I don't think I think we talked and you'd mentioned you just kind of built it for yourself, but the Aussie Centurion, I think towards the end of our days with MMIR was one, because I had personally invested a ton of time into one for myself, but you went through the whole kind of similar process, and I think it's one of the more fascinating kind of not really unknown, but just it's not the most popular subject, Aussie Centurions. So that one I was always a big fan of that one. And then I'm excited for kind of what the Stuart's done for you. I do think it is your best work as far as, just I haven't seen you in a while. So that's there now. So now it's, and it sounds like you're doing a bunch, you are building for yourself as a hobbyist, but while you're still professionalizing it a little bit to push some stuff out. So it's, I think like what you're kind of, and I think this of my own work too, is I don't really look back too much. I look forward. I'm like, okay, now where is this all going to go? So for me, I'm like, I know John's next work will probably be my favorite work because his last one was my favorite. So I want to see the next one. And that's usually, that's kind of how it's like Adam and Martin. Everybody's like, oh, I love that. Okay, now what's next?
Yeah. So, ironically, on the bench at the moment, I've got another Australian Vietnam Centurion, which is another AFE club kit, which
I want to redo one myself too. I'm with you on that. I think it's a fascinating subject.
Yeah, I think it's such a sort of cool, like a man's tank, as they would sort of say.
All the little mods that they did for the jungle and in the worn olive, in the worn colors they were doing, and
that's right, yeah, and
the various screens.
And it's again with like the sort of Facebook thing where you can join a particular group. I joined the sort of Centurion group, and I just posted a couple of pictures up of the model in progress, and just got inundated. And then a guy messaged to say he was the 2IC of that section or troop. and then sort of said, oh, we did this, we didn't do that. And it was just like, wow, you know, and it's just been, it's so invaluable. And, you know, again, it's, for this Centurion, I'm using techniques that I sort of had a dabble with on the Stuart. They were sort of experimental on that vehicle, but now I've kind of now added them to my sort of like palette, you know, and with a bit more confidence that I know I know where they're going to go, and it's not like a gamble, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Yeah. Because they're so individualized. You know, I think that's one of the things you're talking about is, you know, various troops they're very specific to what they were trying to do per unit in Vietnam and what they were tackling and how there were modifications to that particular tank as it evolved through its time in service and combat. It's a very interesting little fascination of development in you know, of a country's, you know, how the Aussies use that vehicle to handle that situation it was never built for, you know, that whole conversation.
That's right, yeah.
Like F-105s, the same idea, you know, kind of that, even though the U.S. didn't, but the Aussies particularly would tweak stuff all the time, which I find it fascinating. So like no two are the same.
No, like I say, it's all locally produced field modifications that they've scrounged and borrowed from wherever, you know, and it's, you know, and I really like the fact that you've got things like parts were shipped straight from the UK in deep bronze green, and you know, where they would just fit components, and so you know, I've sort of incorporated that onto this one.
That'll be awesome. Looking forward to seeing that. Ivan, what about you? Any favorites of John's work?
It's hard because they're all amazing, but two stand out, and it helps because they were both there at Telford, so I could see them in person. the IDF Centurion. Because we were talking about that, and I said, "Oh, I see you've got the rust from under the weapons." And no, it's not. It's because the amount of gun oil they put on it, and then the dust and sand would collect in the oil. It's a really rich orange stain. And because we talked about that for so long, I was like, "That's an awesome build." I do really like that one. I like the detail you went to.
I think I got my phone out then, didn't I, and showed you a picture or something to sort of. Honestly, it's true.
Ivan, were you accuracy checking Spud?
No, I had absolutely no idea. I was like, I thought that was just rust.
I think it's like it's a default now, because you know, obviously when I first started modelling, and you know, we didn't have like the internet as such, when didn't exist, and you had to sort of be able to sort of defend whatever you've done to a model, because there's so many sort of naysayers and doubters out there. So you almost become very sort of like default is to be quite defensive and to prove that you've not just made it up, and you have seen that, you know, somewhere, and you've copied it from a real vehicle.
My other favourite was your D9R, and I like that because of the plastic carrier bag you've got at the front of it with the rubbish in.
Yeah, that was
It's those very small details.
Because that was done did that for the AK Weathering magazine. They had a special issue on Israeli stuff, and that carrier bag was something I'd added after, you know. So I think it was, again, having that sort of luxury of, you know, I know I did have to do it for an article, but sometimes I know, like Spencer will say, right, once the model's it's finished to a point, that's it, move on, never touch it again. But I'm terrible that I'll kind of sometimes get something out ready to take to a show, and I'll have like a little sort of epiphany and think, I'm just going to add this or add that. So sometimes the models are never really finished. You know, I'm always sort of fettling with them or adding. As I've been sort of trying new techniques, and if something works and I'm happy with, if I can add it to a previous vehicle, I'll quite happily do that as well.
I really like that. I actually, years ago, I'd only build one model at a time, but I get in moods where I want to put kits together, super detailed kits, or I want to paint, and they're not always at the same time. So I'll usually try to have 5 or 6 that I've got ready for paint, or maybe they've got a base coat or primer on them, and I'll put them away so that when I'm in the mood to paint, I can come back to them. And like, I built a Slave 1 back in, I think, 2017, and Mike was kind of trying to help me, and I wanted to do some OPR, but I wasn't ready. And then I circled back around to it after he started his videos, and I was able to do it and really, really pull off some things and felt great about it. So I like the fact that you're willing to take a kit and take a look at it and go, hey, I want to change this or tweak it, or, I mean, just, that's how we grow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think it's pleasing when you look at sort of stuff you may have built a couple of years ago to what you may be building now, and you can see a progression. I've got models that I think, right, I'm not going to take that to a show anymore because I feel that I've kind of changed direction or sort of improved, hopefully. So there is a noticeable difference, and it's not up to the standard that I'm kind of happy with now. But there's a period where there's sort of a transition where then they may not be where I am at this moment, but they're not quite ready to go to the shelf of doom or to be stripped and, chucked away. So, I kind of give them a second life almost.
Yeah. Yeah. So, John, anything besides the Centurion that's on your bench right now that you're working on or planning?
I've got M48A3, another Vietnam kit that, again, inspired by a set of decals from Echelon. And it's just such a cool vehicle with the teeth on the front and 250 caliber machine guns on the turret. So that's another project that's just in the build stage. And then just random Sturm Tiger. Always liked that vehicle, just such a cool looking lump. And for some crazy reason, thought I'd have a go at or want to try one of those, the ambush schemes that you see on them, which is sort of probably going to be an awful lot of masking. So, but yeah, that's the three that are on the bench at the moment.
Nice.
One of the funniest things I've ever seen is that one little film that exists of the Sturm Tiger actually firing the weapon on it. And it's just insanity on the highest level. It's so great. Well, John, before I turn the mic back over to Mike, I want to thank you for our listeners out there. I asked a couple of questions of John about his M10 because I'm doing an Achilles 2C for our Posse group build. And John was so amazing. I mean, he didn't even know who I was. He was going down to Bovington. He took pictures of them and sent them to me, sent pictures from his own build. I mean, just John, thank you so much for your generosity. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, no, John's always, I think if there's one quality I think most of us admires, John, you've always been gracious with your time, and your stories are always the funniest of the group. So it's always to have a beer with Spud. I tell you what, it'll make your model show if you get that chance. So do you have any social media aspirations of YouTube or doing anything past what you're doing right now to kind of maybe, I don't know, either get back into this, I guess what to say, or where you're going? Like what's your next steps or plans?
I don't,
or just
honest.
Hanging out, having a good time?
Yeah, just hanging out, having a good time. I was dreading this, to be honest. I just a sort of little sideline story that when I was working over in the States, a girl behind the bar in our local, just across from the office, said that I sounded just like Hugh Grant. Now, if Hugh Grant was a hillbilly, then I was exactly the same. But no, I don't think
I think she was flirting with you.
I don't think I have the BBC News presenter's accent to do like my own sort of video channel and that, to be honest.
That's awesome. Well, it's good to see you again.
Yeah,
I've always, yeah, same here. These stories are great because there is and I hope there's more. I know with COVID and everything, but I mean, it sounds, maybe in a year or so we'll get the chance to see each other. And my plans for this was to come for World Model Expo and hopefully maybe even one of the fall shows, to kind of come and see, maybe even Scale Scotland or something, so I can come to that little island that you guys got up there in the North Atlantic and come hang out and all that fun stuff.
Sounds great. Yeah, that's one that I really want to go to the next year, is the Scale Scotland, and definitely sort of Robert show. So Rob Cronbecky keeps inviting me over, and for whatever reason, it's just like pandemics or passport gets eaten by the dog or something So yeah.
Yeah, it'd be good to share a beer again.
Definitely. Yeah, there's a lot more stories. Sorry.
There's a few. Yeah. Not for prime time.
No, and I don't think, like they say, none of them started with, well, I had this salad. I think most of them have like, well, I had a beer or two.
Well, John, thank you so much for coming on. This was my main goal for whole of Telford. Like, screw everything else, my main goal was get John on for an interview.
Thanks.
So thank you so much for making the time and coming on and being so gracious and talking to me forever. But yet, forever wasn't long enough. I listened to you talk for forever, literally. Mike, thank you for joining us and being part of this interview.
Absolutely,
It's been amazing. And Scott, once again, thank you for being an amazing host.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. John, thank you for your time. Thank you for your contributions to the group build. I look forward to seeing, more coming off your bench. Those 2 Vietnam builds you're doing sound great. Mike, thank you for joining us today as well. Can't wait for what Rinaldi Studio has planned for 2022. And you guys have a great day. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
I was there.
I'm sorry I missed it. And I talked to John afterwards, and he told me personally that he's like, man, I really wish you were there. I really wanted to talk to you because John and I chat a lot on Facebook. So
yeah, Spud's a great guy. He's also doing the Sheridan book with Per and I. So he's a wonderful, amazing talent.
I've been communicating with him this past week because he's been sharing pictures of his Centurion. And absolutely gorgeous. And
those Australian, oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's not overdone. It's beautifully subtle. It's just spot on.
Yeah. And what I love about his builds, and this is what I specifically asked him, his dust texture. It is so subtle. And I was like, how do you do this? And again, Spud, the guy he is, just walks me through it, and super nice. And he, spoiler alert, everyone, you have to still buy his book and his articles, but, he uses Tamiya paints then with, Tamiya thinner, but he uses mineral spirits to kind of rub them away. And he says work section by section. So I'm certainly going to try it. I was really surprised to hear that since, Tamiya's is an acrylic base, but just going back to Spud himself, really great guy, fantastic modeler. Again, always admired his work. Constant staple on the cover of Tamiya Model magazine and a stand-up guy. So I was a little disappointed to miss it along with you, TJ. And hopefully we can get him back on maybe for a live session or something and walk through some of his builds.
Have you seen
yeah, for sure.
16 scale Stewart on the front of it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
in person.
God, it's so good.
Dude, I kept getting these texts in the what's the middle of the night, and I'll wake up to them. What the hell was I thinking? This thing is so large. JB, you're running into that right now, but
I know that. Yeah,
it's a lot of canvas to cover, but it's beautiful.
I mean, honestly, you could put that on a background outside, and you could dub it for a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like you could easily be. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And again, big thanks to Mike Rinaldi for stepping in for that interview slot. I know TJ and I we owe you some cash on that one for taking up our seat.
See, at the start of the interview, I was quite quiet. I was just fangirling. That's the first time I spoke to Mike in one of these recording sessions. I was like, "Oh,
you're still blushing."
It's Mike Rinaldi. Oh my god! So for the first 10 minutes, I say nothing. I'm just listening. But yeah, that's Stuart. I've seen that in person. We always say this pictures don't do it justice. Yeah, the Stuart he brought it to Telford. Yeah, it's just incredible.
Yeah,
it's stunning. And like you said, John, he's got all the time in the world for you. He's really helpful, really nice guy, and it was really fun to record with him. He's someone you definitely want to take to the bar because he's just got endless stories you just want to listen to.
So that was a great. I don't even know how to end this segment, Scott.
I can end it.
Do it.
It's a cupboard, not a closet.
God. What do you call
know how
back?
many emails we're going to get for these things in the next 2 weeks?
Wrong side of the road.
It's not a cupboard, it's a wardrobe.
Hey, a boot is footwear, not part of a car.
Absolutely.
A trunk is also what you store stuff in, but it's not on your car.
A bonnet, right? As well. We call it a hood over here.
Yeah.
A bonnet is what Laura Ingalls wore on Little House on the Prairie.
The thing is, you also wear a hood.
It's true. Your logic is undeniable.
The benefit of being an Englishman.
All right, John, you got a discussion to lead, don't you?
Man, this is a good episode. Hopefully people have a good comfy seat. Now we get to the part of the episode where, we just have an open topic. And this week we're going to talk about the power of pushing it. And what does that really mean? It means being bold in a build in the interest of growth or just, testing something. And it could be as simple as, scratch building or even pushing a finish, which I think a lot of us have gravitated towards lately. And, as an example to start off, I'd love to use a friend as an example. And he's a close friend of ours and a really good guy, Ian Boner. He is out of the Indy area. And recently he posted his IS-2 online. and we'll be sure to share it with our listeners. But it is something that is really inspiring, and it is something I believe, and he's talked about it, has pushed him, beyond his limits and tested out a lot of things and took risks. And that's important too to understand, is there's no harm in taking risks in the hobby. If you screw up, you can strip it or start over. But, I just want to start off with, that's a really good example, and we'll share it for our listeners to see where, he approached a scheme that, is challenging, a whitewash on a Soviet vehicle, and really to get the gritty and the patina that comes with that type of finish, and experimenting techniques out of his comfort zone. And when he initially shared photos with us in a private group chat, I was shocked and honestly had shades of Wilder right away. It is dang good. And Ian, I hope you know that from the bottom of our hearts, that your work is inspiring, and you pushed it in the right direction. And we really look forward to seeing it finished. And that's just one example of many I think we can use. And, to start this off, maybe I kick it over to you, Ivan, and if you could give an example, and we'll do a round table on what's a project that, you got out of your comfort zone, you pushed, you learned, and now you accelerate through it.
I'd have to use my Tamiya 148 Easy 8. For me, my end goal for my armor modeling is to do the Spanish style. I love it. It's my favorite. I love the contrast. It's not realistic. Don't care. It's what I enjoy. On that, because it was a 10-day build, I had to do it quite quick. I just had to not think about things, just get on with it. But because it's a smaller canvas, I had to be more extreme. I felt I had to be more extreme anyway. So my modulation was very strong. My chipping was lighter than I would have normally done. And I managed to get a finished model that I love and I'm happy with, because it's smaller, it's more extreme. The highlighting on it, the shadows on it, they're much more in your face. There's much more contrast, and I'm just really happy with it. To this day, I'm still happy with it. The way I got to that stage is not thinking about it. Just get on with it, and I managed to do it with a finish that I was really happy with, which is rare for me because I hate everything. But yeah, I'd have to go with that, the extreme finish of my smaller projects.
And you've seen that carry over, and that has influenced you in future builds as well, right? And you've carried that kind of technique over.
Yeah, because usually I modulate with paint, and I know no matter how extreme I go with it, I'm going to lose it. It happens. But I know I can just come in with oils and then exaggerate it again. That's why I love oils. You can just redo your modulation with oils. So now I don't worry too much about the paint because I know I can come back to it. And that's why oils are my favorite product.
Yeah, and I saw that really exemplified on your truck. I don't think it was an Opel Blitz. Was it a Ford?
It's the North African one.
Yeah, where especially on the top of the hood, on the cab area.
Yeah, it's a V3000S. It's an unnamed ICM truck here, but it's pretty much an Opel Blitz
for sure. Doug, what about you?
Oh gosh, guys, I
we can come back. It's okay.
Oh, I won't have any more then either.
That's staying in the episode.
When it comes to pushing through, I'm really good at finding excuses not to even start sometimes on a project or continue on a project. A lot of times because it's something I've never done before. Maybe I'm trying a new technique of some sort. Maybe I was building a tank, and it wasn't my thing. And man, sometimes it's not so much doing something that I'm comfortable with, but just sitting down and starting to get myself to do what I need to do and get it going. And once I'm going, it's hard to get me to stop. I mean, just a few weeks ago, I was on the bench probably 2 weeks straight. I didn't have a day off. It's what I wanted to do because one day I made myself do it. And then every day after that, I was just on it.
Doug, it's interesting you're saying that. I mean, and interested to see if you guys feel that way. But I know when I hit a roadblock and I walk away from the bench, I'll take this issue, this problem, this obstacle to overcome, and I blow it up in my mind. And I notice that when I just get back to the bench and get after it, it's never kind of as bad as I'm afraid it's going to be. Do you guys have a similar experience?
I'll tend to stop, and if I'm getting to a point where I've got to do something I'm not 100% sure how to do it, I'm the type of guy that obsesses over the process in my brain on how I'm going to achieve this. And I'm not kidding you. Dude, at my age, going to the bathroom 3 times a night is a ritual, right? You're sitting in there in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. Well, if I do this, then I will. It's on my mind until I think I've got a process or how I'm going to attack it. Then I can go back. But until then, breaks. Can't go back until I can figure that out before I start it.
Oh, 100% there. That's why I have a lot of in-progress builds.
Yes.
I don't sleep for that reason. I'm up all night thinking about models that I've not even started yet. And
Yeah,
how
the bathroom or the
them.
thinking?
Definitely the thinking.
Ivan's a young guy. I don't think he has that problem yet.
Okay. All right, good.
TJ, like when you did your George Washington bust, I mean, it seems like you kind of hit the pause button for a long time. And then when you picked it up, you got through it actually really, really quick. And it was really great. I mean, what was your experience like when you did that?
You're right. I did. I had that bust for months. I don't even know. It was the first bust I ever bought. I don't know. It was weird. I did that in 2 days from start to finish. It went from a solid chunk of resin, unpainted resin, to mounted on a wood block within like a proper display for like how a bus should be. And I think a weekend. I don't know. I don't know what came over me. All of a sudden, I just like, I'm going to paint George Washington. What better way to practice painting than painting the most famous American that's ever existed, who literally everyone in this country knows what he looks like, and probably other countries too, I would imagine. He's pretty famous. I don't know. I grabbed my airbrush, I grabbed some flesh-colored paints, and just went to it. And for whatever reason, it worked. Yeah, I don't know. It was like a whirlwind.
John, what about you? I mean, what's an example of something that you've kind of done along these lines and overcome?
Certainly the T-34 that caused Facebook to break for one day. It was the modulation on it was something that it reminded me of Tony Greenland builds with the titanium white edges where the modulation was, so stark. And I was like, and this is the one where I, talk about sleepless nights. That was one where I think, Scott, we had an intervention. I still have tear stains in my one shirt from talking to you that one night. But, it was getting through that. And then during it, I'm also like, you know what? I'm going to push it more. I'm going to use these oil paints and try to follow a Wilder's method. And then I made a T-34 look like it had jaundice. And it was like just beaming like yellow. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But, during that time, going back, and it was a great time to understand the principles of color and color theory. Scott, you said it. I think you said it on the phone. I literally remember standing in my morning room in my old house talking to you and literally pacing back and forth and looking at it in different light. I'm like, this thing, I'm about to yeet this thing off the back deck. But you're like, John, calm down, put a blue filter on it and just finish it. And sure enough, that was it. And learned a lot. And that was one where it kind of goes back to Stan's point where you reach certain stages in builds and you hit like a wall. And it could be in construction. It could be I feel like the pin wash stage is like right after that, I hit a wall because I'm like, damn, it looks good. I don't want to touch it anymore. And I find that the T-34 was an excellent example and something that I have to remind myself where, hey, you did it before, you can do it again, just push through it and execute and finish and try to catch up to TJ on how many builds he's building. So,
well, a very wise modeler once told me several times to trust the process. And I just reminded you of those words. So
Stan, you've hinted at a few things on your end. Your projects, honestly, I feel like everyone is pushing it, whether it's your stowage, your finish. If you could pull back, the layers and look at one of your builds that maybe defined you or made you push through something that you're particularly proud of, we'd love to hear about it.
Well, I think one of the obstacles until somewhat recently for me in building models is completing models, right? I mean, it's a long time from start to finish for me. I'm a slow builder. And there's been years where I've finished maybe one, maybe two. Now, at that point, it's also the phase of life and all our obligations you've got going on and so on. Moving out here now, it's just my wife and I, obviously settling in, working in my other business, but I've got time to spend some time up in the model room. My wife gave me an entire indoor bedroom in this brand new home to have a model room, which is like the most amazing gift. So I actually get to spend some time. So it's not a quick process for me. And I never will forget, I still do from time to time. I'll get my hands on a Tamiya kit before most of the general public. Ask Marcus how many times I've gotten a Tamiya kit before he's gotten a Tamiya kit. And I'll send him a picture and I go, "You interested?" And then after the profanity-laced text back, he's going, "Yes, and I need it in X amount of time for the next publication." Well, that happened with Tamiya's T51 or M51 Super Sherman. I got my hands on a copy of that from the guys in California. And I start to finish that baby in 21 days, which is unheard of for me. And of course, I can't leave it alone. Couldn't do it out of the box. I had to move the spare track links up on the side of the turret, and that meant scratch building the racks on it because the racks that Tamiya gave you weren't right, and that was meant putting stowage, correct stowage on it for the Golan Heights and this, that, and the other thing. But dude, I banged it out. He was nice enough to put it on the cover, and that thing just has kept winning and winning and winning. 21 days is unheard of for me. Since then, I've fallen back into my old patterns of like a year and a half. But, that FA Miniatures kit, that little, let's face it, the whole thing is less than 5 inches long. But, with me, that still was a 2-month process. So. Leave it to me. I'll come up with a way to make something longer and more painful than it should be.
Well, hell, if the end result is like that, it's worth the wait.
Thanks, man.
Well, thank you all. I think that was a really great and spirited discussion. Now I'm going to kick it over to Doug to talk about what our listeners have had to say recently.
All right. Thank you very much, JB. We've got quite a few emails these last 2 weeks. It's been great. Got one from Jonathan McRae. Hey, gang, I just got into the podcast recently, and I've burned through the backlog of episodes in rapid order. He's got a driving job, apparently. Just wanted to say thanks for the great content, especially with regards to mental health and the social aspect of our hobby. As a newcomer to the hobby, the perspectives on these intangible elements certainly help provide an additional emotional and psychological impetus to keep going despite my busy schedule or hang-ups. He does have some advice for Ivan. He recommends check out Culver's or Popeyes for takeaway when you're at Nat's. He says don't sleep on chili rellenos if you go out for Mexican food.
We have Culver's here in Denver. We'll get you that here.
That just sounds dangerous.
He's warned us he's not really into spicy food, so we might have to monitor him a little bit.
You give me the heads up first. He was like, just be prepared. Things are quite spicy over here.
We'll get you some ginger ale and saltines for you afterwards.
Oh.
TJ, is your CPR certification up to date?
It is. It 100% is. Recently, mind you, like within the last 2 months or so.
I just envision scenes of Dumb and Dumber where you just start squirting mustard and ketchup into your face, and TJ comes over and punches you in the chest.
We got another big thank you about the mental health stuff from Christopher Higson. He said he thanked us for helping him clean up his model room. He says that's really helped him to get his mojo back and get working. Let's see. He says he's been on a slump for about 2 years and he's starting to feel the mojo again, and he's very excited about that. Darren from the Scale Model Hangar. Hey guys, just listened to episode 37 and enjoyed it immensely. Glad to hear your thoughts on projects and ideas for the coming year. He says he has a few big projects in the pipeline. The first being a 148 scale kinetic Sea Harrier FRS-1 that flew during the Falklands War. He says he's not sure if we were joking or not, but if we're looking for extra presenters, he'd be up for it. His qualifications are cool English accent, loves chatting about models and actually building them. He also has a great face for radio.
As we all do.
Tyler Shepard, actually, this goes right along with some of the things we talked about in our discussion we just had. He asked if we ever have need of a confidence booster build, like a build you use to show yourself that you can make really good quality models. He has no drive lately to build, and scrolling through Facebook can be a bit rough because of all the fantastic builds he sees. What are your thoughts, guys? I think you just got to do it. You just got to build for yourself, and if there's something you want to improve on, that's practice there. Just work on what you need.
Every build of mine is a confidence builder.
From George Witter, chapter contact for IPMS Race City. He says, "Yeehaw, guys, love your podcast. Still trying to catch up as they're wonderfully long and full of good info and interviews. He would like us to talk about a group build The Sauzier Challenge, that's for Race City, IPMS. Rules are on their Facebook page, and everyone's invited. Tom Holland, I assume this is not Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Tom Holland. I'm sure I'm the first person to ever drop that joke on him, right? Hey guys, great podcast. I'd like to say I'm not an armor builder. My primary interest is naval aviation in 1/72nd scale, but I've completed 2 tanks in 2021 and have a Tamiya Panther A awaiting tracks. This was probably for me my question about the yellow on the markings. He says RAF yellow is a slightly red yellow, not quite as orange as road stripe yellow. U.S. insignia yellow is not far off, but certainly don't use lemon yellow, chrome yellow, or any plain yellow. And then we've got, I'm going to butcher this name, Thiago from Brazil. Thiago. I have never thought a scale model podcast would be so entertaining, perhaps because there is a type of humor that only us modelers get. Not only that, though, some discussions are almost modeling philosophy, which is a more serious, deep aspect of the whole thing. For instance, applying stencils to aircraft is not only testing our love for the hobby, but is it really worth it when you consider the final result? Perhaps some, but not all. I'm 41, I've been modeling since I'm 7 or 8, mostly aircraft, almost only World War II fighters, and almost only the true scale, 1/48 scale. I rarely post my work online, but some of it can be seen at iModeler. My latest is a P-47 in Brazilian markings, which I'm particularly proud. He gives us the link here. Maybe we can get that on the website. And by the way, that P-47 is beautiful. And those Brazilian markings on it are really, really sweet. So yeah, go check that out. So from southern Brazil, I thank you and salute you. Keep up the great work. And thank you, Scott. All right, that's all I have for feedback tonight. And I'm going to pass that back to Scott.
All right. Well, thank you, Doug. And thank you for the feedback to all you listeners out there in the Posse. Again, you can send that to plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com. Well, guys, I think that's about it for episode 38. Please watch our Facebook page for details on our upcoming Posse live stream that will be held Friday, February 11th. And hopefully we'll see some of you in Seattle on February 19th and 20th and in Denver on March 12th. So join us again in 2 weeks for episode 39 for more fun and discussion about all things scale modeling. Stan, we appreciate you joining us. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been a ton of fun. Thanks, guys. Ivan, you still drive on the wrong side of the road.
It's okay.
Nice, savage.
I just want to say it's an aubergine, not an eggplant. It's been great having you on.
You keep telling yourself that. Give Marcus a pat on the bottom for me. I'll talk to him soon.
He's a hard guy to get hold of.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
We also want to thank our sponsors, Tankraft and Sean's Custom Model Tools, for all their support for the Posse. Until next time, you guys stay well. And to all of you out there in the Posse, here's hoping that each and every one of you find some time to spend at your bench. Well, I guess the only thing left to say at this point is...
They just tuned out, Scott.
Yeehaw!
That seems well longer than last time.
That was definitely twice as long.
Everybody seen Boba Fett Chapter 5?
No.
Yes.
No.
No? Oh, Ivan.
I'm not gonna lie.
I'm with Ivan. I haven't seen it.
Thank you. I've not even finished Mandalorian.
Oh.
What?
So check this out. We have, like we've got Paramount Plus, we've got Discovery, all these
HBO,
different for share the passwords with my girls, but they have Disney Plus. Do they share it with me? No.
Oh,
Change your passwords, man. Change your passwords. Hold them hostage.
But I did see a picture in Boba Fett with the new, I guess it's a Nobu fighter where it's blown all the panels off and turned it into like a hot rod, a chrome hot rod. That's cool.
It was cool.
Someone's got to make a kit of that, or at least, someone try to scratch out that little tiny, what was that? Was that Fine Molds, or who did that kit?
Fine Molds.
Yeah, Fine Molds did a little one. Yeah.
Or you could AMT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is larger. I could have swore I had a Fine Molds in one, and I looked and I could not find it.
That's too bad, because it's probably worth about $300 now.
Because I have the Jedi Starfighter, which is also, that thing's like this big. It's so tiny. I could have swore I bought one at the same time as the Jedi Starfighter, because I don't particularly like the Jedi Starfighter, but it was Fine Molds and it was Star Wars, and that was right around the time when there was the rumors that they weren't going to be making them anymore. So I was on Hobby Link Japan, buy. And yeah, I guess I don't have one. I was pissed.
I've got the quarter scale X-Wing by Fine Molds, and and then of course, Bandai came to the rescue and got way too much of that stuff.
You can't have too much Bandai.
The 48 scale X-Wing by Fine Molds is really good.
Yeah, it's a beautiful model. There was no reason to get rid of it.
No, it's I have one too, and I want to build it so badly.
Yeah,
I haven't yet, but it's so good.
Yeah, I got to clear out my shelf queens, and then I don't have a problem starting something. My problem is finishing them. So I got to finish out these shelf queens.
That's a requirement for being in the Posse, that type of MO, so you're good. Going back to the Naboo fighter for the Mandalorian, I thought that too. There's a lot of scratch work because they have the open engine nacelles. They got like the Vin Diesel supercharger at the front of the thing, and I hope Revell or somebody does it. I wouldn't be surprised if they do.
Well, especially if it keeps getting more and more screen time. I mean, it took them forever to do the what's the name of the Mandalorian ship?
Razor Crest. Scott's got one.
I know the dude who actually built that full-scale set for Disney. He's in Ontario, California, and he built that full thing in his shop out there in the Inland Empire in California. And then he built an exterior 3/4 view, and he said it's absolutely amazing. Just what a cool project.
Yeah.
Some people get paid for that. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, he gets paid crazy money, man.
I'm jealous.
Yeah,
I want one. I haven't seen any of the Are the Revell ones in the States? Scott, how did you get it? Did you pre-order it? Okay.
No, I just got it from my local hobby shop. Ordered it, and they brought it in.
Did I hear
the Spud brothers have them?
MRS.
Did I hear someone else is doing another one of those in a similar scale?
Yeah, round 2, I think, is doing an AMT branded 1/72 scale kit, but it's a different tool. It's not a Revell repop. They're doing their own tooling, at least allegedly.
Yeah, these words have never left my mouth. I'll wait to see the AMT kit, but I'll have to see. I want to end up with one of them, that's for sure.
The Revell has some great parts of it and then some not so great parts of it. The size is certainly attractive, and the slide molded lower tub, I think overall is really, really good. Yeah. There's going to be some cleanup, but some of the parts of the ship aren't as good, but there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it just would be fun.
Yeah. There's a guy that is on Shapeways, and now he started doing resin printed stuff called 308 bits, and he's got engine panels so you can light the engines up, and he's done a figure of both Grogu and Mando, both for it, and a bunch of detail parts, and he looks like he's just gonna keep printing other accessories for it. So I think it'll be a popular enough subject. There'll be plenty of aftermarket to take a look at.
To take our money on. Yeah, very cool. Very fun.
Yep.